Duffield. And our 2 leaders. Well, Brochard's doing most of the work. We have seen a bit of help from his on-site compatriot just behind him here in this breakaway. These twosome. Last time check we had, it was looking like well over 2.5 minutes at the sprint. And this is the climb. It's come in quick succession, these climbs, by the way, because that one, the sprint which we saw down the road there, was after 42.5 kilometres. This top of this climb is at 48 kilometres, so you've got 6 kilometres of climbing, and so those 2 pieces of action are very close together. It then tails off a bit down towards the next of the big piece of action, which is the sprint at Sottoserrano, and a lot of a gap too between the, in fact, yes, still showing 2 minutes and 21 seconds, or 2:20 thereabouts, the gap between our 2 leaders in the main pack. When we go down into the valley and on towards Sottoserrano, and then that's after 63 kilometres, it's another 30 kilometres before we get to the Alto de El Portillo. And really the whole thing is going to come either blur apart the seam or come together at that back end of the race, because the climb of the Alto del Portillo, the first category climb, when they go up that particular long drag, that I think will be the time when the rest of the field here will begin to fragment. They're holding their breath and keeping it together at the moment. But the Alto del Portillo is a 13-kilometre climb, and when they get to the top, they will have 93 kilometres of the race covered. So from the start of the climb at the 80-kilometre point, which is exactly halfway, by the way, it's 160 kilometres, Serrada, one of the sprinters, he's off the back. He's going to struggle. This is where they're going to start their little club forming now. It's called the bus. And the big men get together. So that's it. Let's ride together, keep ourselves company. One by one, they'll drop back into this little group, which then will work to stay inside the time limit. And I think there again, they won't. Jackie Duran also. That's it. He's looking back for the bus. Not one to get in. He tried to get himself an extra point in that sprint, but that's it. He's cooked his goose, or whatever is the French equivalent of cooked your goose. You have to have sympathy. These are the lads who have been entertaining us for the last 4 days on the flat stages, going away in long, lone breaks, racing away, spending all that effort out in the front while the rest of the chaps sat in the main pack being sucked along. And one by one off the back goes these chaps who've been looking for stage victories, working for it, and now beginning to pay for their ambitions in the early stages. That's Arvesen. Well, this man Arvesen was in the break, yesterday when we had 10 men went away with 30 kilometres to go. They rode themselves into a frazzle to try and get the stage victory, and Taffy was still there with just over a kilometre to go and got sucked in. Serrada going back. This is a bit, by the way, when you grit your teeth, you look at the road, up the road in front of it. This is Dylan Casey, by the way, of the US of A. This is number 55 dropping off the back, and that's Echeverria. And I think this might be, is this Fernando Jimenez? He's been having all sorts, yes it is. This is a fellow with the bad leg. The left-hand one. How can left-hand leg? Can't be, can it? The left leg. His top of his thigh is in trouble. So he's no longer doing the quick step, is he? I've mentioned before quick step, and I keep boring people who've heard it, but I know people switch in and switch out of cycling on Eurosport and don't always listen to everything we're saying in previous races. Quick step is nothing to do with Victor Silvestre and the Ritz or the Palais de Danse in the centre of the town in the old days. It is the name of a company that make a particular form of parquet flooring that you click it together very quickly. So you have a quick step. Instead of putting all that sticky stuff down and putting the parquet flooring on top of the flattened concrete, it actually clicks in a very particular way, and you can have it in different colours and different sizes and different shapes. And it's a Belgian company, and they've joined up with Mappe to be the sponsor of the team this year. So that's where the quick step is, and Mr. Jimenez is not doing the quick step by any means. He's off the back. And these are our 2 riders on the front. That's Brochard. Again, because some people watching this race haven't seen much of our early coverage of cycling, Lotus is the Spanish name for the watch company that is known as Festina elsewhere. Laurent Brochard there comes from Mons in France, 26th of March, he's born 1968, so quick summer, that makes him 31 years of age. Another of the old stalwarts here, Jackie Durand. He will soldier on. There's a fair chance that people like Jackie and the rest of them. He's 27 minutes down on general classification. He took an awful pasting the other day and came in way off the track. This little group there may get together on the run before the next climb. They've just had to stay calm, don't panic. In fact, the doctor looks like he's over there. This is Contrini also went with the early break, tried to get away. Now he's suffering for it. And over there, the doctor in that black car looks like he's tending to one of the TVM rows. We may have a chance of going up with the cameras and picking out what the problem is. As I say that, the camera does it. Now producer switches to the front too. It's a bit barren, isn't it, up here? Reminds you of the sort of territory out in Australia, and that wonderful song some years ago. I don't know anybody knew it. 1 kilometre to go here towards the top of the climb, by the way. That song about a pub with no beard. Do you remember it when this chap kept going and found out a pub with no beard? And this sort of territory where you just think, looking at it, gosh, I could do with a drink. So it's Lapis then, TVM, that got it. I thought he looked a bit too big for Blademans, but I didn't dare say so at the time. So Lapis it was. Oh, because he'd been quite spirited earlier on in some of the sprints. And certainly they went through that sprint at Magalath. I would think they're going round about they have been going now around about 40 kilometres an hour, around about 25 miles an hour has been the average so far. As Brochard still goes back on the front again. This is the main pack. This is the chase. Look who's there. The Festina boys have gone back for Vust. There he is, for Lotus Festina, and he's got a couple of his mates for company. So they're going to try and drag him back into the main fray. And they've given up their chances. They've gone back to look after him, give him a bit of company. That's typical tactics, because they know once they get over the top of this climb, we drop down the other side. We've got that long run before the next climb, which is at 93 kilometres. So if they can just get him back within reasonable distance and work together, they might just about pull him back into the main pack. And then he's got to really bust a gut to stay with the race for the final 67 kilometres in towards the finish. So Brochard taking the first climb of the day at the Alto de Magalath, and his breakaway teammate not doing much to help the break. He just comes on the front from time to time. Diaz Justo into second spot. And the chase led by the Benesto team. Well, they've got so many cars to play. Jimenez is back 1, 2, 3 off the front. But with Jimenez and Zuller and Beltran in this team, the fact they've lost Alana this year to the Once team doesn't worry them too much, I don't think. Well, that's a spirited piece of work. He's gone. Well, it's obviously got to do with an opportunity perhaps of grabbing a bit of points on the King of the Mountains competition for Charot. He's been up there. The lad chap who's leading on the King of the Mountains competition overall on the so far is Pascal Hervé, who has 20 points in the competition. This young lad Charot from the Oescatel team, he's got 9 points, and when we go here over this second category climb, there's going to be 5 points for the third place man. The first chap that went over the line, Brochard, got 10 points. The second place man got 7. He's going to get himself 5 points here. Well timed. So that gives him 14 points overall on the King of the Mountains competition. Brochard, who was first across the line, got himself 10 points, and Brochard started out this morning with 5, so he's now got 15 points. And the fellow that is with Brashard, Diaz Justo, hasn't been scoring at all so far in the competition, but he got himself, that's the first time he scored, that's got himself some 7 points. So Pascal Hervé, who rides for the Lotus Festina team, and here we go, this is your gap back to the gold jersey, 2:36 back to Vust. So I think that's goodbye to his jersey, as we'd expected. Breakaway, Brochard, and Diaz just whoops. What else is going on back there? Can't be trying to feed rise on the downhill stretch, surely. Well, delightful part of the world if you're on holiday, but as far as the bike ride is concerned, it's getting hotter and hotter. Temperatures moving up towards 30 degrees, and still our 2 breakaway riders about 2 minutes ahead of the main pack. Mr. Sharrow tried to go across to join up with our 2 leaders and got himself some points in King Mountain's competition, but I think he's going to get sucked back in again, still leaving the 2 riders out in front, Brochard and Diaz Justo, about a couple of minutes ahead. And the work being put in by the Lotus Festina team is that they've now got the gold jersey back up in the pack, and I thought that it might be a chance for him to regroup off the top of this second category climb, the first big one of the day, and we go off the top and then down the other side. I think you can have a bit of a breather. You see the 1-2 riders drifting back, they're going off to get drinks because at this bit it's all downhill bar the shouting, and we come over the 1,000-metre high Alto de Magaras. They then drop down into a place called Madronal, which is 700 metres above sea level, dropping even further into Soto Serrano, which is 490 metres above sea level for the espresso sprint, and then we start to go down even to as low as 360 before we start to move up towards the second big climb of the day. That's the first category climb of the Alto del Portillo, the first cat. There we are, confirmation of the result then. Hervé and Leiska coming over in 4th and 5th spot. So we just then checked that Hervé back there in 4th spot will have helped himself to 3 points. It's a welcome bit of downhill for Marcel Fust. And Pascal Hervé now therefore have 24 points, still leading on the Kingdom Mountains competition. It'll be a miracle if he gets in with this main group at the end of the race today after 100 miles, 160 kilometres of racing with some big stuff ahead of us. The last climb is 33 kilometres from the finish of the race, so if he does this sort of yo-yo bit, I think he's going to find himself a little bit struggling. Well, good luck, Tim. So that's the first climb out the way. Brochard following on behind Diaz Justo. They've also been out again and have repaired the road. This is fairly typical tactics. So 55 kilometres of action, 44 kilometres per hour was the average speed. That's 27 miles an hour, by the way. Now watch the clock. This is good, isn't it? The speedometer. It's nice when some of these different producers do different things. You never know what you're going to get. And on this occasion, what you can do to get the average speed is roughly kilometres, change them into miles. And you see how they've done here? They've made a nice little curve around here. That's something put up especially for the riders to go around. If you multiply it by 6, so down there 64, 65. So if it gets up to say 70 kilometres per hour, that's just over 40 miles an hour. 6, 7 is 42. And here again, and they've still got 104 kilometres to go, and they're through Manuel and not yet. So it's very twisted. It's got to be a bit like this. Quite a lot, by the way, on the run through today, because they're now heading south towards Sottoserrano, and it flattens out a bit and goes along in a reasonable way. Then we started flicking. When we get to the climb up later on, and we go in towards a place called Alberca, and after that the Peña de Francia, we've got lots of little twisty roads. You have to marvel at the way the engineers over the years follow much more than goat tracks, and have cut out the major roads you see on the mountainside, and all the work they've done, and even at the right-hand side where people are trying to scrape a living by making some area where they could actually cut and plant various trees and oranges. I didn't have a chance to look. Now, there can't be oranges. They're further on down, aren't they, from the south, aren't they? But imagine what people have done to eke a living out of this barren countryside, and the way in which the road builders have made the road. This road is, I say, one of the very small and narrow ones. When we get out towards the finish today at Suera Rodrigo, it is right on the, with 20-odd kilometres of the route into Spain, and it was actually built by the Romans, the little town we're going to finish in. They put a bridge over the Rio Agueda, which you'll probably see, and once the Romans had done it, it eventually got taken over by the Moors, because they swept up through this part of the world too as well, and it was right on the border going in towards Portugal, so you can imagine it was very much fought over the years as being the particular route in. A very important fortress it was on the route into Portugal. The French also came down the Peninsular War and took it over as well, so it's changed quite a bit where they're going to finish today at Rodrigo, and we'll also be picking up the more main road, which takes them in, those people coming in from the middle part of Spain into and across the border. Nice little village. And our two leaders still pressing on. I can't remember the times I've been covering this race, but trouble with these big major tours. I mean, this tour of Spain dates back to 1935, so you can bet your bottom dollar at some point the race has been one way or the other, wherever there's a bit of mountains about it. But it's certainly new to me to be coming through here, and it's gorgeous. And I know so many would tune on to watch the countryside, and after the flatlands we've been going through from when we came up the Bucket and Spade countryside, we headed along the beaches and then turned back in towards Madrid. We're now seeing some very interesting parts of the world and some interesting racing too, so I hope you stay with me for more action coming. Welcome back then, and the race still going on, 160 kilometres in all today, and the riders started out like bullets from a gun. We've been averaging 44 kilometres per hour, that's 27 miles an hour on this stage. You see the long string of the main pack here chasing after our two breakaway riders. Still in the distance is Brochard and Diaz Justo. But the field here, I think on the flatter part, will try and do something to catch them back, because having been over the top of that first climb of the day, we've now got a bit of a sort of a peace, I suppose, a bit of peace and quietness as we head in towards Sottoserrano for the sprint, and then we start at the climb of the Alto del Portillo, which when we get to the top will have covered 93 kilometres of racing. The gap then 2 minutes 12. They could survive, but I don't know. It depends how ambitious the big group, or sorry, how keen the big group behind are to suck these two back. And Brochard certainly is a danger man. On the general classification, I'll have a quick look for you. He's going to be, I'm pretty certain, in the top group of 100 riders who are only sort of minute and big back on everybody else. So it's Brochard, in fact, is 46 seconds down with 102 kilometres to go for the main group. Brochard at 46 seconds, so that's why the pack behind here don't want to let him get too far down the road, because he is an extremely good rider. He's got a lot of skill, a lot of experience, and this sort of shortish distance we've got today could suit a courageous man like Brochard to have a go to try and grab the stage victory. At least we're seeing some of the riders that are more frequently known to you on Eurosport. And I committed that terrible error early on. So Robert Hunter was the first South African to win a stage, made a stage in a major race. And of course, my good friend Richard Alton corrected me and said it was Alan van Heerden way back in 1979 when he won a stage in the Giro d'Italia. And I'd been also checking back in Robbie Hunter's background, and he took a stage in the Commonwealth Bank Classic. That was stage 2 way back last year, when not only did he take the stage victory, but he went on to take over the race leader's jersey, which he kept for about 4 or 5 days before he lost it to a chap called Zemana, That was way down in Australia. This is the Banesto team storming along. And talk about the Commonwealth Classic in Australia. When the Tour de France was on, I had a chat. You may have heard it amongst the hours of chats that we did with a chap called Leon Bignell, who was one of the ABC people who came over to the Tour de France. That's Australian Broadcasting Corporation. He's been based in Adelaide. He does radio and television, and he popped up on our guest show occasion, and he and I met up when we went down for the Tour Down Under. I met him there, and we were chatting about the Australians could almost put a complete team in the Tour de France of Australia. They were back to national team. The one thing they lacked was a mountain climber, a little billy goat, as Leon called him. Well, we did mention a fact called Cadel Evans. And a bit of news here for you, mountain bike followers and sportsmen in particular who love cycle racing, that Cadel Evans has signed a contract with Psycho for the back end of this year. They were called stagiaires. This is where riders who want to have a shot at becoming a top pro bike riders, riding in the elite competition, can have an opportunity of riding with the big teams. And so Cadel Evans has taken out a short-term contract with the Psycho team. He's 22 years of age, and he's going to ride the Coppa Sabatini on the 23rd of September, and then he's going on to the Tour d'Emilie in the 25th of September, and the Milan Vignola on the 26th of September. Be interesting to see how Cadel turns out there, because still 22, he'll be riding in the under-23, or should be normally qualified to ride in the under-23 World Championship. But I'm not quite sure how it works out when you start riding with a top elite team as to whether you still qualify for the under-23 World Championship. There's some sort of complex rule which says once you ride for one of these big teams here, the top teams in the Division 1, it affects your grading, even if you are under 23. But I think he may still be able to ride, because last year in the World Championships, Cadel was going quite well in the Worlds, because he, at Valkenburg, managed to get himself, 9th in the time trial and 20th in the road race. And he's a specialist mountain bike rider, and those people who understand mountain biking will no doubt know his performances at world level, where he's been second and third. He's got silver and bronze, but never gold medal as a mountain bike rider. But he has, of course, been twice the consecutive victor of the World Cup for mountain bikes. So that's it. Sottosarano out of the way. This is the flat part again, so again with Brochard setting all the pace to the front. Let's see if the top contestants for this prize so far managed to come through. So we're just waiting then. These two have gone through. Sottosarano, 63 kilometres being covered, and we saw the sprint before the first of the sprints of the day, when Lafis got the third spot. There was a courageous attempt by Nieto, who's wearing the leader's jersey on the Metavolante Intermediate Sprints competition, to get up there together with Jackie Durand, but both of them have suffered on the big climbs, and right towards the back, as now you see the Banesto team under all sorts of pressure, because Brochard is down the road. They're still persisting at over 2 minutes lead, and they're looking back, doing his sterling work, and that's Jimenez. So a hard day in the saddle for the Banesto team. They've got to pull Brochard back. The Once rider down there too. There's no love lost between Banesto and Once. So that's why they've got to do the chasing. Under normal circumstances, the overall leaders team, the Lotus Festina team, who've got the gold jersey, would chase, but they wouldn't chase down when they got Brochard down the road. So that means that the overall leader in the race, Marcel Fust, who's not the world's greatest mountain climber, can sit now back in the bunch. He's regained the pack after that first climb of the day, and it's really, as far as Lotus Festina and Onsafe concerned, an ideal day to put the pressure on Banesto. And here they go. Banesto, having won the race last year when Olana was first, Escartin of Kelme was second, and Jimenez from Banesto was third last year. So it really is a bit of a chase time now as far as Banesto concerned. They've got to pull back Brochard, because with a shortish day today, 160 kilometres, he's got the strength and ability to stay out there and cause a few problems. Gosh, they're motoring. They certainly are still travelling at well over 25 miles an hour average, probably 26 and a bit miles an hour since they set off. And they're now at Sottosarano, the two leaders who've gone through had covered 63 kilometres, 97 kilometres to go. And here comes the sprint. Mr. Vust? I don't believe it. No, it wasn't. I think that's young Peredigro. If I'll just get right and pronounce his name best I can do it. Oh, it's Jalabert, surely. What were you doing out there? Well, none of the chaps who are contesting the points competition so far have had a good day today. It's all going to change, and as it will do in the mountains. And despite the lead out for the Banesto, they couldn't keep the speed up, and there it goes. And so, oh, Solano's got it. What a strange set of events we're having today. Good day, though. Hope you stay with me. On this probably Thursday afternoon, I lose track of days on these tours, on this stage from Beja to Ciudad Rodrigo, 160 kilometres in all. We've just gone through that sprint at Soto Serrano after 63 kilometres. You're watching an intriguing race, I think it is anyway, because we just saw something quite remarkable, apart from the fact we've got these two chaps off down the road, Brochard and Dias Justo. Brochard from the Lotus Festina team and Dias Justo from the Once Deutsche Bank team. We saw Elano, also mounted Deutsche Bank, rocket out and grab himself the third spot on the intermediate sprint. Now, he gets 1 point in that competition, but I don't think he's actually scored anything so far, and he scrounged himself an extra couple of seconds in the competition because you get time bonuses as well. So Elano popped out there. I think possibly just psychological warfare, as much as saying, here I am, I'll have a go at this one, is because the Banesto people have been chasing to try and put back these two, and out of the slipstream came Elano, and I've not seen him sprint for an intermediate. Choosing, well, what was Jalabert doing out there? Because it looked a bit like Jalabert, but he was a bit bigger than Jalabert, and it turned out to be Elano. So we're seeing all sorts of intrigue and different things going on here, and the big major teams now are really having, as I say, a psychological warfare between them, doing various things to sort of get the first day in the mountains under their belt and go into time trial tomorrow, with the team managers muttering under their breath about who did this and why did you do that and what happened. And so it's quite fascinating. See, certainly the Once team are probably now allowing this young man to ride. He didn't do much work, the chap in the yellow and the black, just coming off the front there, Dias Justo. He's been sort of sitting in Brochard's wheel most of the time, but I suspect that probably, as the gap looks quite significant, that he's been allowed now to take part in this, to make the Banesto team really work their socks off, which could make things very interesting later on. One opportunity. It's funny, but I keep talking about these sloping top tube type things here, with this giant chap on the right hand side, which the UCI now look like they're having sense, and they're going to say no, you can have a sloping top tube in certain degrees. The one thing I managed to collect about a week ago was the latest issue of a magazine in France called Velo, and I was flicking through that and found a lovely picture of Indurain in full flight when he set up the record of 49 kilometres per hour in the 65 kilometres in Luxembourg in the time trial in the Tour de France. And there you got a sloping top tube, but it went the other way. It went from the seat tube down to the front head. In those days we were all looking for low profiles, and so people said, well, let's make this tube slope downwards rather than the other way of making it horizontal or slope and just have lots of seat pins sticking out. So it pays your money, it takes your choice, but unfortunately some of this freedom to frig around with bike angles was going to be stopped by the chaps in Lausanne, but it looks like they're seeing a bit of sense. Good luck to them, I say. Let's have the freedom we need, providing it's safe and people have the right position in which they ride their bicycle. Right, back with Mr. Brochard here, because I'm sure you'd like to know more about him, wouldn't you? Yes. Well, don't you ladies think he's a good chap and you want to coddle him or cut his hair, because he's married to Veronique. He's got a little daughter called Lolita, 6 years old, and Bianca, who's just 1 year of age. Bianca, that's her name. Isn't that EastEnders' name? Is she going to be dropped off the programme? I've missed all this, you see. The trouble is you travel the world and you don't keep up with EastEnders, do you? Anyway, he's got a little daughter called Bianca. Been a pro since 1992. There he is on your screen. And height 1.80 m, weighs 68 kilograms. His hobbies are sport and music. And he comes from Le Mans, in place for the 24-hour race where we went through this year in our car, thundering along, or a great big van, people carrier, and where we're cutting across country for the tour, and that's where he comes from. Isn't that nice? Not the fact he comes from Le Mans, but this beautiful countryside, eh? It's when you see these pictures, you realise the enormous size of Spain. we've been bringing this tour now. This is the 5th day. We've seen a few reasonable-sized towns, but we've been racing mile after mile, or kilometre after kilometre, and the cameras have gone up. We had the desolate, arid, sun-blenched plains as we worked across La Mancha and up from the coast. But we're now getting up here in towards the mountains. And again, where is everybody? For those people, that little tiny island back in Great Britain, you can't go more than 20 miles down the road before you run into a little village or a town. Well, you can in Wales, and you can up in up in Scotland, and you can in certain parts of Derbyshire, and right up in between Yorkshire and Lancashire. There are places you can go without bumping into anybody, and maybe out the fens for that 20 miles before you get to small villages. But the enormity of the enormity of a place like Spain, you can't understand it until you actually see it like this on the helicopter. I know a lot of people go on holiday into Spain, but what they do, you fly down into the south of Spain, go off to your little timeshare apartment or into a hotel and swan up and down the beach, and maybe just go back inland occasionally. But not many people just set off to drive, because it's a thumping long way to nowhere when you're driving through certain parts of Spain. And who the heck wants to go on holiday out from here and heading off, unless you're going to Port, in which case you go down to Lisbon and get a hire car and drive out from there. But this is just some idea of this enormous size of this country and the way in which we can have cycle racing conducted with very little encumbrance to the public. When we get into highly populated parts of the world, like there is in Great Britain or Holland, then you have big problems with the traffic and you don't get the sort of wide open space you're seeing here. 3 minutes and 17 seconds for Diafiosto and Borchard. Well, somebody does live out here. The other interesting news is, as you drive along we've just gone out the town. There's another thing which they do on the continent, which I don't think we do in England, do we? As you go out of the town, they have the town name facing you and a stripe through it, so you know you're actually leaving the town. I can't think in England I've ever seen, or Great Britain anywhere, that we put town signs facing where you just come from. So you say, well, that's where I've just come through. But it's common practice on the continent where we drive to say, well, that's where we just come through. Of course, with the water you see down here, the opportunity of the forestry on both sides. That's gorgeous. Look. That's where they're going. They're curling round. We're running back round, almost heading a bit back round towards the right-hand side, that little lot, going round there, and then up over to the climbs are further on over there. This is the river Alagon, A-L-A-G-O-N, if you're interested, Alagon. And they're running up towards its source. It's coming down the other way, and you can see that this time of the year, without the big rains on the mountains and the occasional touch of snow, there's not much coming down there as the riders head up towards the next climb of the day. The gap now is 4 minutes for our two leaders, as the main pack here still going at a great rate of knots, but not really cutting into that deficit, as once again they cross over the river. And this is the Alagon, heading up then towards the big climbs ahead of the Piana La Francia, where the big mountain climbers must be waiting with bated breath, but their strength is being sapped by the speed at which they're travelling. We're still over 25 miles an hour on this race so far, and they have covered something around about 70 kilometres of action, and then we're starting to go up the big climb, and when we get there, we're 93 kilometres being covered, and the climb starts at 80, so we're not far before we start the first category climb, the first of the first category climbs in this year's tour. That's Jimenez, who looks lithe and fit, and I think we're ready for the fray. Just on your screen then, that's Beltran, another superb climber. And just behind here, another of the tremendous climbers each up. That's Solon, Cesar Solon. They're going to bury themselves for their top men. There is Zulla just behind with the glasses, who's their man for the #1 top spot this year. But how will Zulla fare? He's not done the racing these rest of these riders have done, because Zulla was one of those that was suspended following the problems last year in the run-up to the Tour de France, and so he hasn't had the racing miles on his legs, but he's certainly getting a lot fitter now. In fact, going back to last year, if I can just sort of deviate a bit, Pascal Hervé's wearing the white jersey at the moment as the King of the Mountains competition. I understand that I've not quite got the total facts yet, but you can see who just got less than, 88 kilometres to go towards the finish, that he's taking out an action against a newspaper for a lot of money for defamation of character for what the journalist wrote in connection with the problems last year, because there's some story about the EPO, which was the big story of the Tour last year, that he'd actually been stolen from a hospital in Poitiers, and people tried to link his name to it. Now, I never saw the story, and I don't know what they said, but it seems that Pascal Hervé is saying that it's a defamation of character, and that one's raging on too. And those who've been listening to my broadcast last year, on occasion, time to time, this subject comes up, that I try very careful what I say on air. Not because I don't want to say anything, but there are occasions, if you don't know the true facts, and if you don't get something printed in evidence from the UCI, all the event organisers, if you go with speculation that some journalists put out, then you could be in terrible trouble legally, and it could be then, for instance, if I said something on air which was detrimental to a rider or a team based on some rumour flying round, even if the rumour's being openly talked about amongst people, and they say, well, why didn't you talk about that? Because the answer is, if you say things out on air or you get things printed, boy, wham, if the big hitters come on, the big companies, and say you have no proof of that, and they take you to the cleaners legally, you've got to pay a lot of money. And I was very disgusted to see that there was a certain newspaper, for instance, before the Tour de France, who put some banner headlines over certain riders saying they won't ride the Tour de France because of the drug problems. And one of those pictures was of Ulrich. He wasn't riding the Tour de France, not for that, but because he got a bad knee. Now, this is very difficult journalism. If you go and make statements like that or print things, then you're in trouble. And in fact, I've also seen recently when the French were looking back at the last 10 years, I don't know why they did it, something to do with the World Cup. They were doing a look back at various things that had happened and French performers. And there was this particular television article went on to talk about this year's Tour de France and said that Pantani was not riding because of dopage. Pantani was not riding because he said he wasn't going to ride the Tour de France. It was nothing to do with him being suspended. Some journalists rush into print, and if I seem sometimes a little bit hesitant, reticent to make a statement or talk about things, it's not because I don't know something. I've heard things, and we all hear things, but if you go into print or you go out on air and you haven't got the facts in front of you from the governing body. My mind goes back to the Tour de France this year when Lance Armstrong and a certain newspaper said openly, and it was being published across the world, they got proof about him taking drugs. And in fact, it was that little saddle cream with a very minute amount of this particular product which didn't even register on the Richter scale. It was so small, it was unbelievable. And there were just people out there to stir and make trouble. So if from time to time you say, David, tell us what's going on, I don't want to say anything unless I've got the facts in front of me. And that particular day when the news was breaking, so-called news about Lance, then it came out my headphones. I refused to use it. And so one has to be very careful in these matters. Anyway, that's over and done with now. And we've got bike racing, which I love to see. Interesting tactics. Lots of lovely lads on their bikes in their lovely coloured jersey and their lovely bronze legs, riding themselves into a frazzle for you, the benefit of the public back at home. I hope you're enjoying it too. Are you ladies too? Look at this, eh? Lots of lovely shaved legs. I shouldn't be very condescending. I got told off once for saying things like that in front of ladies and talking about ladies racing. This is Pascal Hervé, by the way, who I've just been talking about, who seems to be taking out some legal action. He's got the white jersey on the Kingdom Managed competition, still has that jersey, still is in the lead from the points we got so far, but we've still got ahead of us 3 climbs yet to come, and they all come in the last 67 kilometres of the race, so it could be under threat. And I'm sure he won't be bothered too much if Brushard, his teammate who's down the road, snaffles the jersey off him. Back with the Benesto team. Now, I know a lot of Great Britain ride cyclists often wonder why the Benesto team don't put Jeremy Hunt into the big tours, because he's a super sprinter. But you can see now, look down the line here of the Benesto team. Just for every one of that team's on the front. And here at the back, this is Robin McEwen and Marcel Fust having a chat. And so Marcel Fust speaks super English. I'm not quite sure if he speaks Australian, but I expect he does. In fact, no, he does spend time in Australia. So the two of them here chatting away together. McEwen, the Australian, Marcel Fust, the German, I say speaks about 5 or 6 different languages fluently, including Australian. Please, chaps, I don't mean to be rude. So they're having a chat. They've now got back into the pack, and they're just hanging on because we're going to start the climb before long, and that will have them off the back and struggling. 81 kilometres of the route yet to go towards the finish. This is La Mestas. And they're probably at the lowest part just down there where they've come through of the course so far. 430, yes, it is. They've just come through the lowest part of the course, 430 metres above sea level, and now they're heading off up towards the climbs, and ahead of them lies the climb of the Alto del El Portillo, which is 1,240 metres above sea level. So a quick bit of mental arithmetic says to me they've got about 900 metres of climbing, which is 3,926. It's about nearly 3,000 feet lies ahead of them. It's a long, steady drag from here. The worst part of the climb comes at the back end, and the worst part of this climb is, let's see how far up it is. It is 13 kilometres, and it's 5.8%. So they're on the lower slopes, and then they'll hit the big undulation. A lot of Brochard on his way through at the front then. Pro since 1992. Good stage rider, by the way. He won a stage in the Tour Mediterranean and the stage, the Mio Breton, the first year he turned pro in 1990. Went on in the following year, another stage in the Tour Mediterranean in 93, and they went on the Hoopvaar, won stage in there, and Circuit de South Regio Open Tour 1994. So it went on. He's a great stage rider and quite capable of taking the prize in his big stage race. Takes time to settle in, and today it's stage 5, and he's got to settle in those mountains. He's quite a good mountain climber. He may survive yet, but that's the big tough one which lies ahead of them. Don't go away. More coming up after this break. Full chat, and still our two leaders down the road, hoping they can hang on this of the first big climbs of the day. And talking about hanging on, the chaps at the back here now know they've got big problems because we're heading towards the second climb of the day, but it's the first of the first category climbs we've got, and it's going to be a tough one when they hit the bottom of this one. And when they get to the top of it, there'll still be some 67 kilometres to go to the finish of the stage overall. Not too bad right now, just picking up some of the tail enders there. 181 as we drifted. That was Blylemans from the TBM Farm Freaks team. Little look here back at number 95, and that's Massey, Rodolphe Massey. We haven't seen him riding for an awful long time here from the Liquid Ass scheme, because he got in all sorts of problems, suspensions, and end up in jail and goodness knows what else. But he's back in the pack, and it looks like he's now about to take a bit of pasting, get blown out, because this bunch is moving quite quickly. So there you are. The long arrowhead at the front is the Banesto team. Behind every Tom, Dick and Harry just sitting in the wheels and hoping it doesn't get too tough before we get to the top of this one. And the chaps at the back then, the specialist climbers, beginning to wonder if they're going to survive the day without the bus forming, and I think it will any moment now. There we are, into Salamanca. We just crossed the provincial border. There's now exactly 80 kilometres of the race have been covered, and they put this little sticker up for you. That's nice, isn't it? But I've spotted off my route here. We checked these things, and so it's 80 kilometres they've actually covered so far. 79 to go. The sums don't add up here. La Mestas, yes. They've come to La Mestas at 81.6 kilometres left to go towards the finish. Province of Salamanca, it's supposed to be at 80.4, so they've obviously moved the sign, or they didn't write it down on our instructions quite right. So at the finish, you don't always get the chance to see and drive the whole of the course, and the route today, nice little sort of V-shaped one going round almost at a bit of a loop. They're starting on the loop, back end the loop, and here we are, the Lilemans at the back beginning to struggle. These are the chaps at the back, by the way, who've been at the front. This is like a reversal of the race. It's almost like seeing things if you run, you take backwards rather than forwards, because in the previous 4 or 5 days we've seen, or 4 days, we've seen the fellows you see at the back here, but been the fellows who've been causing all the trouble and going after stage victories and setting the pace to the front. And that's reversed, because here we've got the mountain climbers, the specialist rollers who are taking over. And I was rabbiting on about the Banesto team and Britain's Jeremy Hunt, who's a very good sprinter. The fact that he is not being selected very often by them to ride in the big tours. And you can see now that just for every one of the Banesto riders, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them, all of the Banesto riders are on the front of this group. And teams like Banesto go into a race like this not to get stage victories, and the stage that we've seen so far, the 4th stage we've seen so far, not to do anything more than win the race overall. And that is why they have a team built around riders who can climb mountains, who can, when necessary, ride on the flat. And their team leaders must also be able to time trial. And it's a special sort of team. Now, if you start taking 1 or 2 sprinters with it, or 1 sprinter, say Ernesto said, right, we'll put Jeremy Hunt in the Tour of Spain, because the flat stage of the first 4 days, he may win a stage. that May is a question mark. And now look at Jackie Duran's being blown out the back here. This is the moment when he's had his moment of glory. He's going to have to soldier on towards this is, by the way, only stage 5 of the race this year, and we're going right the way through. Yes, it's gone on your way. He's got another 15 days of suffering ahead of him. Some of it uphill, some of it on the flat. But that's what happens, because people like Jackie Duran, and he's not a sprinter, but imagine Jeremy Hunt, who's been there or thereabouts in most of it. Excuse me, Jeremy, if I say the lesser Spanish races. I don't mean to be rude, because they're hard fought and they're damn sight harder than anything we get back in Great Britain and in certain other parts of the country, because Spain is such a great cycling nation. They've got tremendous racing here going on all the way through the season. And boy, if you can win races in Spain, you're good. And Jeremy's good. He wins races in Spain. And so, but to put him into this race, Jeremy would either have to ride on his own, trying to find his way into sprint finishes, or they'd need to put 2 men in at least to help him on the flatter stages, as we saw in the early part of this race when we were going to sprint finishes. We saw how Telecom put men on the front to drive hard to put Lombardi in with a chance of getting a stage victory. We saw how the TVM team were doing it for Blijlevens. It didn't always take off. We saw how the Lotus Festina team did it here for this chap Marcel Wust. Now Wust is now going to be in trouble, but there'll be a couple of blokes drop back with him. But the whole thing is, up in front, there's only people like Belly for the Lotus Festina team, a lot of Brushard for Lotus Festina team, who are what you might call all-round climbers. And so what you begin to do, if you're not careful, is you're splitting your team into 2. You have the chaps who can go for the individual stage victories, like we've seen so far, the sprinters, and then with Wust getting what he's done so far, his 2 cohorts have dropped back. So your 9-man team is now down to 6 or maybe 5. They've got Brochard up the front. And so if you're not careful, you begin to weaken your team for overall victory. Now, with people like Benesta, they come in and say, we want to win this race. We won it last year. We want to win it again. And they build the whole team around that policy. And you see we're on this climb at El Portillo. So the same thing with Once Deutsche Bank. For Alano, they have built a team to win this race, and that is why we've not seen much of the Once Deutsche Bank team. A little bit here, a little bit there, and this one here, well, he's going down the road. It's not for him to win, it's what he's doing now. This chap with number 3 on his back in the yellow and black, he's going down the road to make sure that the Benesto boys have to chase like stink, because they don't want him to take the lead. So between Diaz Justo, Rafa Diaz Justo here, and his breakaway companion Brochard from Lotus Festina, they've got a gap of just under 4 minutes, and that is why the Benesto team have to chase. They can't just sit up and say somebody else come through, because there are only a handful of teams in with a shout for the top 3 places in the Tour of Spain by the time we finish in Madrid 2 weeks this coming Sunday. And Benesto want to get Zulla on the top spot in Madrid. Therefore, they have to chase out anybody who represents a strong team who could be a threat. And down the road, we've got 2 of those strong teams who are a threat. Lotus Festina are not as strong in depth as Benesto here, but nevertheless, with people like Brochard, who is a spirited attacker and can pull things out the bag. I mean, damn it, he's past world champion anyway. That's a fellow at the back here, 112 on your screen. Then they have to recognise that as he had the suspension from last year's problems, he hasn't burned himself out in the early part of the year. He's worked himself into now. He's a good, you can see by the look of the size of him, he's quite a biggish bloke, which means he can survive the flat. He's not the world's greatest time trialist, but he can get round, and therefore he could be a threat to ex-world champion. He knows what it's all about. Good stage rider, won lots of stages in various stage events as well. And number 3 alongside there, Diaz Justo. He's been a pro now since, way back in 1994. So this must be his 5th year as a professional. And when he first turned pro, he was knocking up victories all over the place. So he's not any bad shakes either, and he'll bury himself for his Once Deutsche Bank team. So a very interesting combination we've got going at the moment, and 1 or 2 teams who aren't leading the chase can take advantage of this, because you wait towards the top of this climb, or maybe let's say no, maybe the next one after this one, the Alto de la Peña Franca. Right, that is my prediction. This will take its course up here. These 2 chaps might survive, but the gap might come down. And then as we go to the climb with what, 50 kilometres to go to the finish, the next one after this one. I'm going to see what would happen with the Kelme team, because Once, Deutsche Bank, Benesto, I also hate each other's guts, but there's no love lost between the two of them. Kelme, who've got a superb bag of climbers, will just watch by Benesto and Once and bash their heads against the wall, whilst Festina are looking to take advantage of the disarray. But you watch Kelme later on in the green, white and blue, and I think they also will start to go some. But one or two riders who can let this battle rage on these climbs on this first day in the mountains will also be taking some pleasure from watching these teams rip each other to pieces, because Oscar Kamazin, the world champion riding for Lampre-Dakin, is sat back in the main bunch there. Or yes, they've got to ride the climbs, haven't they? But they are in the shelter of the rest of the teammates, and providing they've got long drags like we've got today, they can ride these stages today without a lot of energy being burnt up. We've got some cracking climbs ahead of us, by the way. The one, what is this coming Saturday or Sunday? I'm losing. Yes, must be Saturday. We're going over a climb on Saturday, which really is going to blow your socks off. We're going on, yes, the 12th, up the Alto del Angliru. And that one is almost walking territory. And we go up there, and this one is just something right out the top drawer. So whilst today isn't one of those nasty days when everybody gets blown apart at the seams, it's a wearing down process. And as long as Benesto, Once, Lotus Festina start to sort each other out, people like Oscar Kamazin from Lampre-Dakin, who's not the world's greatest mountain climber, but the world champion, is quite capable of staying there and thereabouts. Tonkov, Mape Quickstep, another rider, not the world's greatest mountain climber, but can sit in there and take advantage of the battle raging on. And of course, Jan Ulrich, who has already impressed a lot of team managers by the way in which he's been able to sit in the bunch and stay there in contention. So as they're waiting then for the big teams to burn itself out, and then people like Escartin from Kelme will pounce, or in fact Tyler Hamilton from the US Postal Team. I'm sure we're going to see him start to come through, and not let's either forget that Angel Casero, Vitela Seguros, the Spanish rider, the national champion, will also be sitting in there. So there's a load of blokes who are wandering along now. I won't say wandering, they're sitting behind this chase group here, happy that the pace is constant, but they don't have to do the work. And Benesto burning up at the front, just as trying to contain that pace to pull those chaps back at the end. Are doing all the work, playing at the hands of those chaps I just mentioned. Further back also in that group, maybe see how he goes. Van den Broek from Cofidis. Been to see how he survives this tour. Don't think it's his cup of tea, but we'll see if he survives and stays there. That's Contrini, by the way, who tried to go away a bit further down the road, begin to struggle one by one. These are chaps who just can't stand the pace. That's Robin McEwen. We've just seen him dropped off. There must be the gold jersey. There he is. Marcel Wust has been dropped off. Well, he's had his glory, hasn't he? Let's hear it from Marcel Wust. Hey! 3 consecutive successes in the Tour and 3 consecutive sprint victories, 3 more another 3 days in the gold jersey. But I think that's it. He's just going to have to sort of frame that one when he gets home alongside the other jerseys collected off his friends. But Marcel, great character, and I'm sure he'll be the first to say he was very pleased even to get it on the first day, on the second and third day. But he rode extremely well. He read the sprints good, and that was it. So Festina, having now split their forces, they're one of these teams, let's say a mixture of sprinter roadmen and climbers, are now causing the trouble up in front, whilst the big teams get down to the serious business of trying to win this race by, not just today, by setting the scene for the time trial tomorrow. This is important today too, by the way, because the time trial tomorrow, they go in reverse order of general classification. So what about these chaps here at the back? It looks like Roscioli's still hanging on for grim death here. He's still there. What a chap! I think this is the back group, isn't it, with Marcel Wust, but Roscioli hanging on him. Well, he's entertained us so far in the past, hasn't he? And it's nice the camera's going back. It's a bit like when I see Formula One sometimes, and the cameras just follow the first 3 cars, and I often hear Murray Walker saying, for goodness sake, let's see something further back down there. And he's quite right, because these are chaps who've entertained us some. This is Roscioli, who's at the back. You can get a feeling of the race when you see them at the back, and then our cameras go forward to our two leaders, and the cameras go up in helicopter and go back to the main pack and back to chaps down there. This is the whole story of this race, that we set out 21 teams of 9 men in each of those teams, and now we can see how this great race is being played out in front of you. Live on Eurosport this afternoon. Thanks for your company. Bruchard on the left, D'Ajusto on the right. Not much success recently. Way back in '94 he started with a bang. Grand Prix de Bullion, Grand Prix San Pedro, a couple of successes in Spain, and then on he went. But he's now very much a domestique, but he's doing the right job here. And this is the deputy team manager that's come up to speak to him. Hello. And what's he up to? Well, that's intriguing. They've sent Serrano down the road. The Benestos have been driving this one hard, so I think they're beginning to think that D'Ajusto is not going to survive this one. Why send one man on his own down the road? I don't understand this. Benesto were keeping the pace up, so they didn't want anybody to go zooming past them, but he's just nipped off down the road, and he's going strongly too. That's an interesting move by Once, and this is the typical way in which this thing gets played out. People think, well, we're just going to have a bike race and they're just going to ride individually and off they go. But there's lots of people playing different parts in this bike race. People come in to do different things. Some of them just to survive the race, by the way, and get home and say, yes, I did. That Malaysia from Liquigas Patos just drifted off the back there. So we're back with the tail enders now, but up there in the front, there's a whole set of tactics that I'm finding intriguing at the moment. These are our two leaders with Bruchard on the front and D'Ajusto just behind him. And then, there, Benesto sent him out. We just saw down the road that Serrano, in the black and yellow for the Once Deutsche Bank team, launched himself past the Benesto train because we had all 9 of the Benesto riders on the front, and they put Oza up to mark him. He opened up about a 100-metre gap, did Serrano, and suddenly the Benesto people recognise the danger, because with already one of the Once Deutsche Bank riders down the road, they have to mark this one out. Here comes the rest of the cavalry. Mr. Mano Sainz from the Once team is playing a lot of cards here. Sent one, and now what will probably happen, and I can't quite think why he's trying to disrupt the rhythm, because he's got his top man Olano back in the group there, just riding comfortably. Yeah, they're going to come back. But what he's done, look, he's broken the rhythm by sending one man down the road. He's broken the rhythm of the Benesto team. At one time, we had all 9 Benesto riders powering around the front, controlling it, keeping the speed they wanted, just letting our 2 escapers stay 3-4 minutes down the road on the basis that, well, we'll catch them at some point. But obviously the pace isn't fast enough as far as the Once people are concerned. They want to get rid of a few more chaps off the back. And that's what's happening. But these aren't the chaps they want to get rid of. They want to start making life difficult for the Kelme riders, I'm sure. And the pace has been too consistent so far. Now, when you're jumping around, look, it's splitting now. Once that jump started, you lose contact. And what you do, you see this chap here with his hands on his handlebars. He's looking at the wheel of the bloke in front, and they concentrate. I think, I must stay with it, must stay with it, must stay with it, must stay with it. Up in front, these chaps, they're feeling good. And further back, they're feeling lousy. Wow, here we go again. Another one. This is Cuesta. So Serrano was sent down the road, then Cuesta. We don't often, by the way, in fact, this is the first time ever on Eurosport have we given you a total full day stage in the Tour of Spain. Often we come on air the last 2.5 hours, and we pick up the action and we say what happened further down the road. And you don't have a chance to see what you've been seeing today if you've been staying with us since the race started. The chaps are no hopers, steaming off to the front, trying to split the thing to pieces, getting sucked back in again. Then tactically, there are one or two feelers being sent off, and eventually Brochard goes down with Diaz Justo. Then the team from Banesto have to take over the chasing. And then the team manager of Once Deutsche Bank, it's the size, says, it ain't good enough, let's split it. And he sends another rider down the row, and the whole thing breaks apart the scene. The poor chaps have been riding comfortably in the main pack, are going off the back. And so in other words, we're not going to come in the last 2 hours and say, oh, this is the group, we got these away and something else. You're actually seeing it live on Eurosport, the tactics of these teams being played out before your very eyes, and I think it's fantastic. I hope you enjoy it like I do. The sun's beating down, it's a glorious day, it's the back end of the season, it's in September, but these races have entertained us all the way through the season, and they're still at it, and we've still got nearly 2 weeks to go to finish in Madrid. Well, Cuesta, an extremely good all-round bike rider, normally has been the lieutenant to Jalabert. And don't forget, Jalabert is further back in this group. Jalabert is struggling, by the way. Yesterday he went in that 10-man breakaway group, and he said afterwards that he couldn't take part in the 10-man chain. You may have seen that Jalabert spent most of his time sitting on the back wheels, but he did come through a couple of times. And what he said, I came through to show the people I couldn't push a big gear. He said, it wasn't cinema, I wasn't play acting, I just rolled through, and they knew that I was there. And he said, if the 10 men, this is a nice thing again, like we saw earlier on when Roscioli punctured and his three breakaway companions waited for him. As now back with the tail. Look, there's a Banesto rider already been shot off, by the way. That's not so good. Rodriguez has been dropped off there. The world champ has been dropped off. This climb is beginning to take its toll. Banesto been driving at the front, and their men are beginning to now struggle because Once have started to attack them. But going back to yesterday, Jalabert said that if the 10 men had come into the finish, he would have finished 10th. He felt it wrong to have been sucked along because he couldn't contribute because he had that nasty crash in the Tour of Castile and Leon, that all he could do was stay in the wheels, and he was prepared to come in. And of course, in the end, they got swallowed up in the last 3 kilometres. But that's a very different day yesterday to today. And still, the Once team up. Look at the cards they're playing here. Serrano went away. That's him just down there. In fact, no, they changed the odds. That's Perez that's gone up there, number 7. And there's Serrano. They got Serrano. They got Perez. And also here, Cuesta. And down the road, they've already got Diaz Justo. The Once team are ripping Banesto to pieces. Well, I'm sure that some of the members of the Bar Cycling Club will be happy to watch this, because their colours are very similar. They've copied. They've got the yellow jerseys, and when it says Once, O-N-C-E, they've got B-A-T-H, Bath, and so they probably said, hey, this is our lots out there. But they really have done a tremendous job today, the Once squad, bashing hell out of all sorts of people all over the place. Now, Laurent Jalabert, he won't be expected to take part, I don't think, today. He's got to ride himself into form. I mean, just to see him take part in this race is great after what he's been through. He's had ages off his bicycle. He's had very little training. But Once have decided to rip the legs off Banesto today. And Brochard here for Lotus Festina playing his part. And look at nice little gears pushing. Now, they're coming back. So the Once attack has been foiled. But I don't think that's the last we're going to see of this. No, again. What did I say? Wham! Another one. I'm intrigued, though, that as yet, Calma, Costa Blanca, Eurosport, and the Green have done nothing to take part in this war. Oops, and I say so, and there they go. Wow. Oh, God. Get the six-pack out, put your feet up, brew some more tea. Don't let anybody take the telephone off the hook. Don't answer the door, well, whatever you do. This is going to be the next, I don't know, 20 minutes is going to be fascinating. And then, even towards the finish, we've still got some way to go. This is going to be a great day. They really have split the field, and the control that was exerted by Banesto has now gone, and it's every man for himself. And at long last, the Calme team are taking part in this purge, which was started by Brochard and yes, just to end on that, and the gap is coming down. The speed at which they're now jumping around, what will happen on this particular long climb up towards the top of this climb, the Alto del Portillo? They may close the gap, but there's going to be really demolition derby behind. So these are two leaders who I just saw that shape on the floor. I don't know if you did with the white tape. It looked like somebody had an accident. You know, when the police come along and mark out the body, they put a big chalk mark around it. Well, somebody had done a figure there of somebody lying out on the road. I don't know who it's supposed to be, but that right at the moment, nobody's taking it lying down, and nobody's taking any prisoners either, because Brochard here going away. We went through so quickly the first part of this race that it blew the thing apart, and it was Brochard on that first climb of the day up toward the top of the Alto de Mogaraz, when we went over the top at 48 kilometres, so it really ripped the field to pieces. Dropping off the back, Mori for Psycho Cannondale. Gosh, they are going, aren't they? Really penny numbers, and this is the man doing all the damage. That's Brochard on the front, Diaz Justo for... There we are. If you've been staying with me all the way through this race so far, I said at any time I thought I was surprised why Kelma Costa Blanca hadn't done their usual trick of firing right off down the front. I think they let Benesto chase down the leaders, and surprisingly when the Benesto team eased, then, well, did ease, we suddenly had the Once Deutsche Bank people going through. I couldn't understand why when they got one man down the road, unless they felt that Diaz Justo wasn't going to be capable of doing much more work. So they started attacking all over the place, and now the Kelme team have taken over. Up and up and up towards the top of this climb, the 1,240 metre above sea level, Alto El Portillo, a first category climb. Then we've still got a second category climb ahead of them, the Alto de la Peña Franca, and then after that the Alto de Mansacro, a third category climb, in quick succession. These climbs are coming at the top of this one. There'll be 67 kilometres to go to the finish. Then the next climb will be after, with 49 kilometres to go to the finish, and the final one, they'll go to the top of it, 33 k's to go. So we got very closely compacted together allowing us to start at the bottom of this one, which is about 13 kilometres high, kilometres long, this climb. Yeah, 13 kilometres. So if we go back tracking it, and 80 kilometres from the finish, after 80 kilometres done, we started. So there's got to be 80 kilometres, 50 miles, of which the 2/3 are going to be like this, up and down, up and down, up and down, until we level off for the final 26 or 33 kilometres running towards the finish. So it's going to be a real hard day for these riders. This is going to be the real nutcracker. There they go. Brochard still. When you imagine that he went away on the climb of the Magaz with no more than about 35, maybe say 40 kilometres underneath their belt, and now he's going to go to the top of this one. He will have done something in the order of about 50 kilometres in the lead with his breakaway companion, and it's like little steps. Shame we haven't got one of these little graphic things. I mean, on the Tour de France we had little profiles to show you where we got to, because once we get to the top of this one, there's a little quick dip down in towards the feed station, which they'll get to just off over the top of the climb. Then we're about 3 kilometres. They don't drop down much more, about 3-4 kilometres. Then they start to go up again, and they go up to the top of the Peña Franca, and then over the top, then down they go. Then another little climb, then down. It's like you drop down. It's like steps, reverse steps. So I suppose you experts back at home, if you looked at the course, if you can do these things, or what I've just said to you, if you just sat amongst yourself and decide how many people would be together at the end of this one. If they all sit up and wait, we could have, I don't know, 60 left. If they rip themselves to pieces, we could have no more than 30 left. We shall see. Don't forget, baking hot. 25 degrees this morning, and it's getting hotter all the way and approaching 30 degrees at the finish. Well, they are really beginning to struggle. These are the chaps, that's Odriozola getting blown off the back now. He did such a giant job on the front. He was trying to control it. He's done his work. He's just got to grit his teeth stay with it and hope to get back on that little descent off the top of the climb. Jalabert losing contact. World's number 1, wearing number 4. Not surprising after the bad crash he had. What a great job he did the other day when we watched him fetching and carrying the drinks for his team. And Brochard determined to show he's back with a bang after the problems of last year. More instructions for the Once ride-up, and that again I think was the number 2 car coming up, so Size at the back is still watching what's going on back there and deciding how to fire things off. Here they go. Is that gorgeous, eh? Wow. If you look right down the valley, that's where they've come from. And by the way, they're not just cruising up here, they're racing. Lock him up, somebody. Why did you escape from the Tour de France? We thought we'd taken to the Bastille. Oh, Zach again. I suppose this German gentleman was happy with Marcel Wust taking the gold jersey for 3 days. When Marcel Wust comes up here, I hope he doesn't put that trident in his front wheel, because he's a German rider, German doctor whatever he's called, that nutcase. Oh, they're born every minute, aren't they? Perhaps you ought to join on the roster at the end, because I'm suggesting, if you haven't watched our coverage before, quite a number of cyclists who look at the course and say, oh, it's dead flat, there'll be sprint finishes, so I won't bother to take days off work to watch it. I'll wait till I can suddenly bury my grandmother, or take a day's sick, or have a bad back, or take a day's leave, whatever you do on the days when it's on air for an awful long time. You'll have missed some of the flatter sections and things being going on down there. But right now, getting up in the mountains, you're seeing the whole thing evolve in a different way. And having had a German rider in the gold jersey, and now that chap out there with his trident urging him on, and I suppose he'll give Mr. Wust a shout when he comes through. And if you haven't seen the finishes either, you'll have missed the fact that they seem to have got for entertainment, I can use the word advised entertainment, at the end of the stage. They have these mascots. You know that every big sporting event now seems to want to have a mascot of some description. Well, I think I'm going to have a special David Duffield competition to find the mascot of the year, the good, bad and the indifferent. And I think the Tour of Spain is likely to end up at least getting one, if not two of those honours, because when you see the mascots at the end of this particular stage, you'll have to wonder who on earth invented them. Not only that, the poor people inside them with the baking hot sunshine leaping around in a strange suit, which you're sort of breathing in your own breath almost, and peering through some funny little eyes. You have to leap about at the end. It must say, well, there's one born every minute. Right, back then with the race. Sorry about the rabbiting on about that, but I just thought, well, please stay with us till the end, and perhaps you can have your own scorecard on the mascot of the year. I know football clubs have them too, don't they? And various events all over the world seem to think you need a mascot. I think it's to do with marketing. People sell things like key rings and little giveaways, dolls and things with a mascot on them. All right, quick. Just a minute. Who's that? That's not... Oh, I'll come back. There's a long, lanky... It's Zuller. There he is. I was trying to see what sort of state he's in. And he's dropped. Zuller's in trouble. I'm rabbiting on about mascots, and suddenly I saw a long, lanky fellow, and it was Zuller, who was having to work his way back through. So Zuller's in trouble. He's drifted off the back, but there again, he can compose himself, keep his cool. But he's not with what I call any mountain goats. And there, look, with Ivanov, for instance, he's with him. And that was Osa for Bonesto, who's going to have to drop back and do something to help him. Ivanov, the Russian champion for TVM, not what you call one of the world's best climbers, but he's still driving on up there. So Zuller's lost contact. Just 1 kilometre to go, and I said to you before, by the way, just a short little drop down, about 3 or 4 kilometres, a bit of a false flat, then wham, we go straight up again. So they may still survive on this one, but they're doing an enormous amount of damage behind. So this is what's left of the chase pack, with our 2 leaders just off down the road. And for Brochard and Diasuso. The gap is only 30 seconds back to what's left of a very fragmented bunch. They should get over the top of this climb together. Down the other side, just 3 or 4 kilometres of fairly fast road, and then a bit of a flattish peak before they start the next climb. So I wonder if they'll wait for the chase group. In fact, they're pulling the Mavic car forward, I think, to try and get out the way, because that fast-moving bunch behind will try and come down and catch the 2 leaders. 30 seconds on a descent is nothing if you've got some nutcases in there. But the danger's been done because Zulla's been distanced by this group, and there he is on the left-hand side of your screen, bottom left-hand side. Zulla not holding the pace of the second chase group, but still Brochard for Festina Lotus, or those Festina, dancing on the front, putting all the work in. He's done a tremendous job. Top left-hand side of the screen, top right-hand side is the chase group there. And there's Tonkov just going through in the sort of blue and white Mapei colours and still staying in contention. I think that's Ulrich back there too in the pink and white, and just take it gently here. The Once Rad, don't think will work too hard to try and pull his teammate back, but Serrano, Marcus Serrano, there we see Tonkov, there we see Olano just going through. So that, yes, and that's Ulrich too. He's there, Escartin in the green and white. So Ulrich's making it. This is the first sign of the man coming back. Well, Zulla's back down. There's Vandenbroek with the blonde hair. We've got a cracking lump of riders here force their way through, and that's exciting, that's interesting. This is setting the scene for a super race. Cuesta going through, number 2 there on your screen, and a man dropping in there, Schaefer from Riso Scotti Vinaville, just bringing up the tail end, together with one of the riders from the Lotto team just behind as well. So that's what, 2, 4, so about 20-odd riders then, further back is Zulla, and that's disappointing for Benesto, having lost him so early on. But perhaps he can recover and get it, because he hasn't done much racing like the rest of these riders. Like Brochard, he didn't get back in the saddle until, what, May of this year. But there we go then. Brochard takes it. Diaz Schuster in second spot. This is Serrano leading the chase. The gap's coming down. See the time check here. Very close. Oh, only 17 seconds. They could pull him back. There's probably not more. That's Jimenez has gone through. There's probably no more than 20 riders there. There's a gap coming up to Casero. Leave that to group through. Where's Zulla? Oh, we've gone back to our leader. I suspect probably that they might let that, they might get it all back together again. That's nearly 1 minute. This climb of the Portillo has really ripped the field to pieces. We've got 67 kilometres to go to finish now on the descent. Our 2 leaders, Brochard and Diaz Justa, might well be pulled back by that group, about 20 riders chasing after them. But the damage has been done for people like Zulla, who is coming through the thick end of a minute down. And good to see in this chase group here. We've got Olano, we've got Escartin, we've got the man himself from Telecom, Ulrich, as they hammer off after our little 2-man breakaway group at the front. If they keep this lot going, depends on when they get to the bottom as to whether they look round and count the numbers. But I suspect somehow that because the number of Once team riders here, that Saiz, the team manager, will tell them to keep the pressure on. Keep going, keep going, keep going. And I suspect, therefore, they'll try and rip the legs off for Zulla. And Once they've got enough riders, because this man up here in the front, this Justo, he's been doing enough work to help Brochard from time to time. Look, he's now saying, that's it, I'm coming back into the group. Brochard will have to also come back into it. But then there must be at least 3, if not 4, of the yellow and black jerseys of the Onte Deutsche Bank team. And I reckon when they count heads, they will then say, right, we're off. Now, Brochard, by the way, is quite a nutcase descender. He can go very quickly down, but I can't see any sense in just going on your own, because we've got like 3 kilometres down into the dip, and then we level off a bit, and then we've got another drag up to the next climb of the day, which is going to be the highest climb of the day. It's only a second category climb, despite the height above sea level, because it's only going to be done in, I'll say, a short, sharp burst. The Alto Piena de Francia is just 7 kilometres of climbing, an average of 6.3. A bit tougher in terms of percentage than what they've just been up, but a bit shorter too. So perhaps Brochard's going to say, well, I'll persist with this one to get some more points in the King of the Mountains competition, because he's just helped himself on that climb, the first category climb, to 16 points in the King of the Mountains competition. I don't think that his teammate Hervé is in that chase group. So Brochard, 16 points there. Let me find as they come down here. I'll try and keep an eye on them coming down the climb and put you in the picture on the King of the Mountains. Don't go away. A bit quick, isn't it? Right, see how far to go. 63 to go to the Meta. Meta's not the town, it's the name, it's the finish. And Brochard's persisting. Well, he's now got himself an extra 16 points. He started out with 5, he gained another 10, he went to 15, and now with 16 on top of that, he's now gone up to 31 points. So, at my current reckoning, I don't quite know where Hervé was on that last climb. I didn't spot him. I'm not saying he wasn't there, but with the lads all thundering around across the line, I'll have to wait and see. Yes, he's got to sit back now. If he said he used to drift back, because he could be now moving into the King of the Mountains competition lead jersey. If Hervé isn't in this group, we've got another climb coming up, and he could well get himself. He's now got 31 points. Hervé, as we start that last climb, had 24 points. So Brochard is looking like he could be in there for the King of the Mountains jersey. Yes, look what's happening now. The Once team have moved forward. They've got the word that Zuller has been dropped off the back. They're going to rip this race to pieces as we head in towards the second category climb, which lies just down the road. This is going to be great. Well, I've been sitting here absolutely gobsmacked by what's going to be going on this stage 5 of the Tour of Spain from Beja to Chedorrigo, because Zuller is behind the group which you're seeing on your screen here. There's about 22 riders or thereabouts in that group, with a fair smattering of the Once Deutsche Bank lads in the black and yellow, and Alex Zuller, who got dropped on the climb just down the road, is chasing hard with another group about a similar size. So we got, and he's only got about one of his Benesto teammates with him. So the difficulty is going to be here as to whether the Benesto team will say, look, let's drop somebody else back out this main lead pack here to try and collect Zuller, so he gets back again before he gets his next climb. Because as he gets back, if we hit the next short, sharp little climb, he could lose a bit more time. Once we get over the top of the next climb, which is ahead of us, the Piena de Franquia, then it's certainly a good run in towards the finish. It's not all downhill, a couple of short little sharp climbs, but they're nothing significant. But he has to get back before we get over the top of this next climb. Otherwise, he'll be in all sorts of trouble on the run down in toward the finish. So you can see the lads in the yellow and black here, Mario Sainz, their team director sportif, has just got the whip out and said, come on lads, get stuck in. So it's before we saw the Benesto team chasing after Brochard together with Diaz Justa, because they were way down the road, and Benesto did a wonderful job to suck them back in again. And now the situation is reversed. We've got the black and yellow jerseys of the Once team ripping the legs off the Benesto team. My mind goes back also to the Tour de France, when across that causeway there was that crash, which meant that Zuller was in the back group 6 minutes down, and Benesto went on the front, and Once et al. Went on the Benesto in the back group, chasing after the front group. And so the two teams again, Once versus Benesto, we saw before our very eyes. So one has to recognise that I want to say there's no enmity. There's competition between them. And it's a bit like Manchester United and Arsenal, or in fact, I would say Glasgow Rangers and Celtic when they come to meet together. But there is between these two teams, Benesto and the Once team, they've been at daggers drawn, and sometimes riders have gone from one team to another, like on this occasion. When the Once team hired Mr. Alano, who rode last year for Benesto and won this race, was hired in great secrecy at the back end of the other rooms, flying around. He packed his bags and left the Benesto team, went over to Once. And this, you can imagine if you support big teams and somebody goes to the opposition, wow, there we are. That's up there, Serrano, Jerez and Beltran. No sign at the moment of Hervé. Nice to see Jerez up there, by the way, for the Calme team. Tour de France stage, but a good moment when it comes to the mountains. This is the feed station. It looks like Quest are in trouble. He's riding well up. Perhaps he went back for something. Well, the feed station, 96.7 kilometres of action so far, 63.3 to go. It goes that same level through here until we start the next climb. Let's see, roughly, put in the picture how much more we've got to go. About another 4, 5, yeah, 6 kilometres. It's been about this for about 5 or 6 kilometres, and then it starts to rise very gently. So there could be a chance for Zuller to get back, but he's got to bury himself and his teammates, and that might put them at a disadvantage when they get to the next climb. Another Mosette coming up. I wouldn't mind one of those. Mind, they do occasion time to time now the commentators have some liquid refreshments as Luttenberg goes through. He seemed to have found his level, Luttenberger. I said the other day he went to Rabobank, and that was a team which had high hopes for him doing well in the Tour de France. It didn't quite fit in with the Dutch system, but now he's come to the Once team. He's found his position really as a domestique, but a super climber domestique, and he seems to be much more regular in his riding. It was a bit irregular for it, but look at the number of the yellow jerseys here. Good dear me. No, this is not an Once Deutsche Bank training camp and a benefit of them alone, because they're going to now get stuck in and make life very difficult for the Benesto team further back. Wow. Let's have a roll call. There must be at least 6 of the 9 men in the yellow jerseys in this group, and I don't think we've got quite that number, the Benesto team. So I reckon there's 28 riders in this group. Let's see if I can pick it up on my headphones, because I switch these things off from time to time. You get the gabble in Spanish and everything else, and it's not always easy to pick everything up. It's all right when I'm doing the Tour de France, because I can follow the French all right, and my challenge is not too bad, but the Spanish get a bit, I can't always pick up the words and numbers. Let's see if I can find out who's in that. The answer is moment no. It's all too jumbled for me. I'll come back in a moment. Meantime, let's hope the graphics come up, or Radio Tour gives us the information. And look at that, though, the yellow jersey. You don't need to have numbers here, do you, to count that lot. You just sort of say they're all in yellow. Let's count them out there. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, must be 6 certainly of the Once Deutsche Bank team. There's not more than 30 riders in this breakaway group, and we know that they've managed to post quite a number of good riders out there, like Cuesta, Diaz Justo, Lutzenberger, Serrano, which we know they're there, and of course Alana will be there too as well. This is going to be the day when the Once Deutsche Bank really set about making the Benesto lads sit up and take notes. But bear in mind, people like Jimenez and Beltran in this group won't do anything now, because with so many yellow jerseys round about them, their job is just to sit there and hope that Zuller can get back. But the battle is now raging between the 2 top teams in Spain. You're watching it live on Eurosport in the afternoon, if you are with me this afternoon. My name's David Duffield, and I hope you'll stay with us, because we're now on the next climb of the day, the big second category climb, and this could be the decider of the day. Stay with us. Well, this is a great day as far as Once Deutsche Bank are concerned. There you can see Alano with his sunglasses popped up on the top of his head. There we pick up Cuesta, with a little white cap stuck back to front, and behind him for the Vitello Seguros team driving along there, that's Igor Gonzalez Galdiano, who had the glory of taking the opening time trial stage of this race, the prologue. Santiago Blanco, another great rider who's promised a lot but not done quite so much in there. And therefore the Benesto team, at least they've got Jimenez. Now this could change things quite a bit. Tomko 121, there's Escati, number 71, got his teammate just up alongside him, number 75, and that was the another good climber, Jerez. Looking back down here, another of the Benesto riders just sitting in there with Pierre Poli, quite a good little climber, and 41, that was Zuller, and there 201, this is the Casero, And back here, even another of the Once Deutsche Bank teams, that's Luttenberger, an extremely good climber. And just following on there, that's Ivan Para, another good climber. There, Brochard, who started all, just bringing up tail end Charlie at the moment of this group, about 30 riders, which lacks one significant man, Alex Ziller, winner of this race in 1996, winner in 1997. And now he's been distanced by this fast-moving group, which could set the scene for the next couple of weeks. Back out there to from the Kelme Costa Blanca team, and he's been sent out to drive this one on the two. So there's got to be some help here for the Once Deutsche Bank and the yellow and black by the Kelme team. They didn't do much in the first 80 kilometres this race, so not being disrespectful. They allowed the Benesto team in the white and the blue to bash themselves into a standstill, chasing after the yellow and black Once rider who went away, Diaz Justo, with Brochard of Lotus Festina. So they allowed that war to rage, and we're now back then, and this is back with the what's left of the peloton, the main peloton. And there's Zuller in this group. 1 minute 24 seconds from the Alano group to Zuller. This is the battle between two men. Alano, last year's victor, now transferred out of Benesto for the Once Deutsche Bank team. Zuller, winner 96-97 of the Tour of Spain. And this is only day 5. One thing I liked about the Tour of Spain this year, when I looked at the profile of the race and the route it was taking, I thought, great, for 2 reasons, apart from the route. Because some riders hadn't had their best tours, Tour de France, Tour of Italy, they'd come into this race looking to do something, like Tonkov is in that leading group, who put his whole season around the Tour de France. It didn't come off. Zuller, who wanted to do well on his home patch. Alano, who didn't do well in the Tour de France either, trying to do well here on this occasion. And poor, of course, Jan Ullrich, who's in the front group just down the road here. Ullrich, with all his problems with his bad knee and his crash and his inability to get early season training with his bronchitis and his sickness and everything, had to do something, had to ride this race. So I saw, the profile, and I realised that on day 5 of the race, on stage 5, we'd got a mountain circuit like we've got today. Because in previous years on the Tour of Spain, we've often started and gone right along the coast, where, because the big coastal resorts want to pay lots of money for the tour to go there, so that the cameras go up and pick up their lovely beaches and their nice high-rise blocks of flats and accommodation and marinas and so on. Nothing against that. That's perfectly normal, because they want the publicity and we need the money. So on that occasion, we've been along. I mean, one year we had, I think it was 9 or 10 stages of dead flat and nothing but bunch sprint finishes, and sometimes people turn the switch off. But in reality, I knew this year when I looked at it, 4 or 5 days while the sprinters sort themselves out. Jolly good racing so far. Interesting to have Wust of Lotus Festina take the gold jersey and have triple back-to-back victories as well. We've seen lots of things. Jackie Durant, we've seen very interesting racing. Now we've got part 2. The overture for beginners is over and done with. Now we're coming to the big act, and we've got it straight away on day 5 or stage 5. There's Alano with his sunglasses popped up in the top of his hat, and all round about him as his Once Deutsche Bank team, the gap 1:35. Look how they're working. And of course, also, this is the moment when the Kelme Costa Blanca Eurosport team will settle their differences with the Once Deutsche Banks and prepare to work over Zuller further back down there, and anybody else who could be in contention for top honour. So if they keep this going, of this group of 30 here, we could be seeing maybe the selection for the top 10 in Madrid. But you never know with people like Zuller, if he can still get back or stay within a minute and a half of this little lot when they come in toward the minute, if he's there, then we have a great day in the time trial tomorrow. But that man there, just drifting on the left-hand side of your screen, Alano, world time trial champion. Gosh, he'll take some dislodging tomorrow. But of course, Zuller, also great time trial champion, will be in with a shout tomorrow. So they've really got to set the scene today. Take the lead in the race, or be up there ahead of Zuller. He will know that he will start behind him, and so from the time trial point of view, Alano wants to be following Zuller tomorrow to get all the time checks back, which is psychologically the best place to be. So it isn't just only what he can save today as far as I'm concerned, or how much he can knock out of Zuller if he can do. It's to get himself behind Zuller tomorrow in the time trial, and therefore be psychologically in a better position. And the same thing for everybody else, like Escartin in this group here, and Ullrich, again a superb time trialist. So we're setting the scene very early on for a good day's racing today. Friday doesn't come back together on the final 33 kilometres. A good day's racing, which will put us in the pound seats, or the piesta seats, million piesta seats, because it's funny money out here. Million piesta seats for tomorrow's stage into around Salamanca, where tonight the buses will take the riders back for a jolly nice evening. And no doubt for those of us who've been working all day today, we're going to have a chance of a few gargles tonight, because it's a cracking day's race. Sometimes you look at it, of course, and think, this is going to be a good one. I had it in my gut feeling today it was going to be a good one. There's so many good teams, well prepared here too, and well organised, and the Once Deutsche Bank chaps are really going some. There's the Spanish champion, Casero. The remnants of the Benesto team weren't going to drive this one through. Piepoli from Italy. Good little useful climber. And now, I think, by the way, Jimenez, number 15 down there, which you're seeing, if it stays like it is now, today, on your screen, there's Ulrich, 41. These are great shots, aren't they? You can pick out all these riders. There's Tonkov on 121. And the Once Deutsche Bank ride there is number 1 is back because he won last year, Abra Milano, just tracking on behind. Further back you'll see the other rider from the Kelme team with the one on his back, Escartin. They're all riding here. There's Escartin moving through. I want to push the pace a bit up. Well, we've lost, if you're wondering what's happened to Jufo Psycho Cannondale, who really wanted to do well in this race this year. He crashed a couple of days ago and retired yesterday, so he's out. He's one of the top men that we haven't got with us, but in this little group, except for Zuller, we've got just about anybody who's anybody. I'm not quite sure if Van den Broek is here from Cofidis. He's not a great 3-week tour rider anyway, but he's the one rider who I would think, and Oscar Kamazin, the world champion's not here either, so he's just missed a beat today. And I think Rebellin from Team Polti could be there. I spotted a Polti ride there now somewhere. He's got 131 on his back, so you keep your eyes out for him. But Rabobank seemed to be a bit thin on the ground as we're going on up towards this climb, Pena da Frenkia. Well, certainly people out with a whitewash on behalf of Jerez, who's in this little group here, together with his team leader, Escartin. Zuller's name on the road there, we might as well black that out. Now he's over a minute and a bit back on this breakaway group, or leading group, because the whole thing is split apart. The scenes are coming up towards the top of this climb of the Alto de la Peña Franquia. And, Brochard's had enough. I'm not surprised. He's been so strong all the way through. He went away as we head up towards the first climb of the day at Mogaraz. He was gone and away after some 35 kilometres of racing. At this particular point, we will have covered about 105 kilometres now, so he's done about 70 kilometres. Most of it he was out on his own, and it looks like he's suddenly blown a gasket, and that's him gone off the back. He's leading on the King of the Mountains competition according to my calculations here, but he's way sagged off the back. It depends if he can hang on enough points in the competition. He's got 31 points in the competition, and we're going over the top of this, which is a second category climb, where there's 10 points for the first man over the top, and the one man who might be able to catch him, I'm just looking to see that his breakaway companion. No, I think Brochard might. Don't quote me on this. Don't broadcast it from the hilltops. I think Brochard might have kept the Kingdom Mountains jersey by the time he gets into the finish, because although we've got 2 climbs to come, he's got so many points in the first of the climb, which was the second cat and then the first cat, he could probably just about get away with it, because we've just got a second and a third ahead of us here. And I think they're more interested, this little group you see on your screen, in ripping the legs off Mr. Zuller, who's marooned back in the chase group, than they are in just going for the Kingdom Mountains competition. That can wait, and it certainly can wait, because people like Escartin and Jimenez, who are in this group, the specialist climbers, will probably be able to sort Brochard out when we go on, not tomorrow, but when we head up into that ginormous climb that we're going to have. We've got some enormous mountainous stretches ahead of us, and particularly that one over that unknown climb when we go up on the stage Salamanca-Leon. That's going to be a real stinker. These chaps know just what they've got to do, don't they? Off they go on the front, driving away. What a way to earn a living, eh? This is Zuller. His teammates drop back to give him some. Oh, here comes the onside team. This isn't called gloat time. They just go past and they go, we got him now. There goes the team manager. He's had to look back to see who's looking after Zuller and what strength he's got round about him. And Zuller is troubling. He's in trouble. Look. What a shame. I've got a great admiration for this bloke. All the years that I've seen him riding, he's got a lot of guts and determination and a classy bike rider. I know he's had his problems last year, and one or two other riders had their problems likewise, but I always admired his style, his tenacity, and when he's right, when he's fit, he's been very, very good indeed. But he's struggling now, he's rocking. Any bike rider watching this programme knows, to see how the man up in front of him, just riding quite comfortably. That's Oza, number 17. They're going to go round about him. You see how I wish they'd gone back there, because Zuller is struggling. He's out the saddle, he's trying to find more. Then he bounces back, then he sits down, and his two teammates are riding comfortably. They were like going at 85%, 85, 90, and poor Zuller was right in the red and doing all he could. He just couldn't even stick with him. He's now dropped off the chase group. So this is the lead group, then there's a chase group, and then there's Zuller. So I think I had Zuller down as a long shot to be in the top three on my predictions for this race, which was not unusual. I probably got awfully terribly wrong, but I did pick Escartin to be the overall winner at the end of it all. We still have to wait and see on that one, but certainly Zuller is not going to perform as well as I had hoped. And you might say, why didn't I pick Alano? I didn't feel again, although Alano's in this big group here, that he can last for 3 weeks and not have a bad day. And that's the whole thing about bike racing at this level. You have to have a good, every day must be a good day. You may struggle, but boy, if you're going through what he's going through here, legs 11 himself, and his legs have now gone to jelly, absolute jelly. You see his teammate just looked over his shoulder and was just soft tapping, no problem at all. And up in the front, they're ripping him to pieces. They'll joke when they get back, by the way, into the hotel back in the town tonight, because everybody heading off into Salamanca for the time trial tomorrow. They'll joke about it, but it'll put Jimenez there in the right position, and I'm not sorry about that in some respects, because Jimenez I admired last year. I think many of you who watched our coverage or read about the Tour of Spain last year will have felt, as I did, that Jimenez, who finished third overall behind Alana, there were times when he could have attacked his teammate and race leader Alana, but he didn't. He did the job he had to do. He rode there. He rode like a good team man that he is, and Jimenez last year finished in third spot. And I've got a feeling then, as now Zuller's gone out the back, unless a miracle happens, that Zuller's going to find himself tomorrow, the time trial, Zuller is quite capable of pulling back a couple of minutes on Jimenez. In fact, I'll try and find Foyers as we go back here. And that's up with the little lead group. He's still burying himself on the front. We're seeing Calme doing their big job as ever, murdering everybody in sight. That's Uria. .238 back to Zuller. Right, I've just gone back into the time trial results on the stage where in last year in Fuenlabrada on stage 21, the penultimate stage of the race, on that 39-kilometre race, Zuller in the time trial ran out victor, and I can't see in the top 10 places Jimenez at all. So just showed that was back to 1:32. So Zuller on that occasion but probably pumped about a couple of minutes out of Jimenez. On the time trial before that one, the first time trial stage 9, I can't see where Zuller got to there, but again I think you'll find that Jimenez is going to find himself in difficulty. Oh, there is Van den Broek. So it's not all lost for Zuller back down there. His time trialing skills tomorrow could still put him back up there with the shout, but I think the Benesto team might be wondering, most mountainous Tour of Spains we've had for some time, and they might then say, well, even if he does move back up the GC, they're not going to allow him to be the team captain as regards, or the team leader as regards the overall race results. At the end of it, they'll look after Jimenez as Van den Broek goes away. Well, that's a cheeky little thing to do, isn't it? He's sitting in the wheels, and Alta de la Kenya Francia. He takes that one. That will please my French colleagues and those from Belgium and Holland too. There goes the great entourage as usual. And Van den Broek will, I think, sit up, wait for that lot to come. So that was a cheeky move. Well, it's good to see Van den Broek having a go at this, because he had a checkered start to the season when he was under all sorts of suspicions. I won't say any more than that, because much of it was just innuendo, and the poor chap got suspended by his sponsor, and now it took him a long time to come back. And although one's looking here, these chaps racing in September, early in January, in fact, Laurent Jalabert, the world's #1, who's back in the main pack here, and Oscar Kammerzin's way off the back as well. I saw them in Australia in the Tour Down Under in mid-January, and here Zuller now struggling. That Van den Broek didn't get the racing miles in, nor in fact did Zuller, and he missed out 2 in the early part of the season, didn't come back into racing until May, and it does seem just to knock the edge off people. You think, well, racing all the way through from January right the way through until October, it certainly should sap the strength and make them very tired. But what they do, they pace their season. And if you come in late into the season and you start racing in May through sickness, illness, suspension, whatever the case may be, it takes you a long time to get back in the rhythm of things and to sharpen up your performance. And Van den Broek here, his team just said, well, look, hang on, we'll wait while things sort themselves out. When the things got sorted out, I said, OK, you can come back and race. He's lost a lot of ground, and but that's nice. A cheeky little move he did back there, and I'm very pleased about that, because the chap's got so much going for him, and some of the innuendos that flying around meant. What about Cofidis to other teams? I mean, they think, oh, you know, if it's press story or suspicion, or the police are doing that, they're inclined to say, hey, we'll stand back from that. But Van den Broek looks like he's back in with a shout, and then. Now on his way, second in the Tour of Flanders, Van den Broek. You've got first over the top of this one. And you see the gap in 2 minutes 21 seconds it is. Wow. And no sign of Zuller yet. Here he comes. Gosh, this is going to be a big, big drop for Zuller. Towing up Soissons Neuf, who's prepared to sit on the back wheels here. Juan Carlos Vicario from the Fuenlabrada team. And they can see the banner in the background, but my clock is showing 2:45 or thereabouts. This again is a dedication. These two chaps have dropped back looking for Zuller. They were doing so much work earlier on to keep him in contention. They now sacrificed their chances. They've gone back to look after him. They're quite capable of going off down the road when Zuller's in a bad patch, but that's their job. That's Oderizola and Osa looking after Zuller, just hoping to get through bad patch, because people do this, by the way. You can ride yourself through this bad patch, and it's 3:25 back to Zuller. Well, that's a lot for him to pull back in the time trial tomorrow. We ain't finished yet. The fat lady hasn't started to sing, and we've still got, let's see, quickly checking his route. As far as Zuller's concerned, he's still got another 49.8, say 50 kilometres to go to finish, some 30 miles. It goes down a bit here, as you can see while they're... Yes, of course, you can see that, can't you? The fact they're freewheeling, and they're trying to have a chat and sort things out. It goes down... must be about 10-12 kilometres, and then we have this little short sharp little climb again after that, then again down, then a little short sharp climb. So it's not a downhill all the way into finish, but the short sharp climbs that lie ahead of them shouldn't in any way, I think, disrupt the rhythm of the race, nor perhaps make things, if they keep going, that gap can't be pulled back that easy. So poor old Zuller has got his work cut out tomorrow when it comes to time trial, an event which he'd like to win. But there again, you see, apart from being a damn good time trial, if he's going to have to race with the rest of his people at the back, they're going to find that he could be tired for tomorrow, and that's going to make life difficult for him when he goes in a time trial, if he's tired to pull back the gap he's got now. But anything like in bike racing, and so stay with Eurosport to see if he does get back, but I doubt it. This group of riders coming down off the top of the Peña de Francia. This is the highest peak in this region. You've got some enormously great views. You see these cameras going around here. If they go forward, by the way, we're heading in towards Portugal and across the plains of Meseta too. So we've got beautiful views up here, and we're going to take them on board as we go on in towards the finish. But we're just dropping down this little descent before we, well, a fairly long descent, about 10, 12 kilometres down. Then a little flick up and towards the short, sharp climb, another descent, another short sharp climb, and then the long run in towards the finish. So it's going to be, I think, curtains as far as Zula's concerned. We came over the top of that climb of the Alto de la Peña de Francia. He was 3 minutes and 25 seconds down on this group of about 30 riders, which includes people like Olano, Escartin, Ulrich, Vandenbroek, you name it, they're there. So it's goodbye, I think, for him, and goodbye to other riders who were not made it in that particular group. Casero is here also, the champion of Spain, so we've got a pretty good group. Cameron's the world champion, hasn't made it, according to my calculations, but there's a lot of stuff. I think Rebel has probably got across there too from Polte. We haven't got a full rundown yet on all these riders, about 30 of them. Escartin is there too for Kelme, so just one or two big hitters have failed to make it today. I don't think Belly's got there, but I have to check out for it. There's Vandenbroek, cheeky little chap, went away and got the top of the climb of the Peña de Francia in first spot. The gap then 3:33, 3:34 back here to Alex Zula. Lovely, lovely long fast descent through here. And his teammates still unselfishly driving hard. They've got to save every vital second they can do, because Zula is a great time trial. There are 99 kilometres of time trialling in this race, so over that sort of distance he can pull back quite a lump. Although if Olano is in the lead, Olano, world time champion, won't give up without a fight. Amazing great range of mountains you see here, the Sierra de la Peña Francia. Heading in then towards the finish at Ciudad Rodrigo, and that is only some 27 kilometres from the Spanish border. Sorry, from the Portuguese border with Spain. Good racing territory. You can't just go out and practice these roads, because it's million miles from anywhere, this part of the world. You just have to rely upon the bloke around the front who's going to make sure he comes around the bends and keeps it all together. Most of these bends are what are called nicely landscaped, and you don't get the very sharp drop on the inside the hairpin. They seem to have been much more smoothly done. Sometimes you go around the sharp bends on the old roads, and there's a very abrupt descent, and if you drop inside too much, you sort of find yourself going all over the place. So still on the front then, the Once Deutsche Bank riders. I said in the programme how these great barren wastes of Spain are super for bike racing, aren't they? These chaps can just take the lines they want. Oh, they're closed roads anyway, but to close a road in this part of the world, it's not that difficult, because except for the odd farmer trotting along in his battered old Seat, there's not much going on, so they can easily close the road. The chaps can come along here. Good surfaces too. They've been all sort of cleaned up and got ready for the tour. It's like going out there and somebody creating for you a special racetrack, isn't it? Say, okay, chaps, you can race in this sort of territory you want to go over. You can have it. Here it is. It's just a great change from the problems we had back in Great Britain with the traffic and the complete disregard for bicycle racing and cyclists in particular. Well, not everybody, but we don't always get the sort of recognition that out here, apart from the fact there is very little traffic, once you go through the villages, everybody knows that all over Spain, this is going out live on TV. I said the other day, the bars will be packed with people, will be watching the race. They'll have their own start sheets of the day, they'll have their own profile of the day, they'll have their own general classification from yesterday. They will have been up. They will be watching also for some of their own favourites. They'll be watching out for people who come from a certain part of the world, and all that atmosphere is there in the bars and restaurants and at home, and people just soaking up the Tour of Spain. Although it's only been going since 1935, there's so much cycle racing in Spain that it's I suppose not been number one sport. It may be number 2 or 3 in terms of the public. I think probably football is number 1 sport, but we in Great Britain have got so many other sports that we follow. We've got lots and lots of sports that we're sort of reasonably good at, and some sports we're not very good at, and we try to do too many things. But the Spanish have got 1 or 2 sports they not only like to take part in, but they like to watch as well. And cycling has been one of those sports that can get the sponsorship. There are so many Spanish teams. They've got lots and lots of Spanish races, not only individual one-day races, but also the mini tour, Tour of Catalonia, Tour of Burgos, Tour of Mining Valley, all these other ones which are just wall-to-wall bike racing. And you see people, look on the side of the road, they're all there cheering this lot on. They're full of it, eh? This is a great day for them. The Tour of Spain's coming through, and it doesn't often come this part of the world. I can't remember last time, if ever we came into Ciudad Rodrigo, I didn't get that piece of information from the organisers as to when we came here last to all. Sometimes, yes, Salamanca we're going for the time trial tomorrow, a regular watering hole of the Tour, but here we are out in the little back lanes, and the public turn out in great numbers and said, right, we're going to watch this race come through. And when it's all gone through, apart from seeing on television, back down to bar, and they'll sit and analyse and talk about, well, if only Zula had done that, and what about Jalbert doing this, and Alano did so and so. Look look on the side of the road. It's great, isn't it? I know in Great Britain the Prudential Tour and the Tour of France went into Britain, everybody turned out and cheered it, but they were cheering because I think we all in Britain recognised the same thing, the enormous athletic performance of these bike riders, and they want to stand on the side of the road and cheer them. But once you've cheered them, they've gone through, there isn't the knowledge of who's doing what, whereas a lot of these Spanish people will be so soaked in it. It's just like when you see or listen to blokes in the pub when I'm back at home, they say, I don't go to the pub very often, but let's say I did, they would find people talking about last night's football match, and they all have a point of view of this player and that player and something else that went on. And cricket, you can get some people will bore the pants off you, spending hours telling you about this stroke and that stroke and something else and how he did this and that and something else, and cricket suddenly dominates the thing. But you don't get people sitting in pubs in Great Britain until we get to the Tour de France actually talking much about cycle racing, and when they do, it's because what they get off television, and thank you for watching our performance. But when you get out into Spain and Italy and France, this is the atmosphere. They're soaked with it, they know about it, and lots of young riders, young athletes who suddenly go out and find they can ride a bike, they want to become bike riders rather than bank managers or engine drivers, and that's what you see. That's why it's a different level of sport, and that's why we're still struggling, I think, to produce champions, except on a one-off basis when we get from time to time a Brit, like recently Chris Boardman gets up there and becomes world champion, and of course we go back over the earth, the track riders, the Reg Harris of the world, the Hugh Ports of the world. We've had certainly from time to time we get people who pop up and win medals, my great friend Tommy Simpson and so on, but generally speaking this lot in Spain, they're knee deep in talent, they're all over the place, and there's Cuesta on the front charging away right now, and this bloke looks like he's been born to be a bike rider, doesn't he? He's got exactly the style, the gangling arms and the thin legs and the great big chest, and he's giving it all sick for unsafe. I think it's curtains as far as Zula's concerned. He's now nearly 4 minutes down on this lead pack, about 30 riders, where the Once Deutsche Bank team in the black and yellow have really started to grab this race by the scruff of the neck and make it a nice platform for Mr. Olano to go into the time trial tomorrow with a chance of being even more at the top of the head of fair. This is that last, I said how it goes down and up a little bit. This is the last little ups where you get any King of the Mountains competition prize money or prize points or prize time, because Brochard, who set off after some 30-odd kilometres this morning, 35 kilometres, is now being blown out of every little group. But I think he's got the King of the Mountains jersey on his shoulder. Back then through Mansagro with Zuller, who is really struggling, getting on towards 4 minutes down on that lead group. So I think he's going to have his work cut out in the time trial tomorrow. In fact, no, so it's 3 minutes. He's come back a bit. It was 3:25. Mind you, be careful with this GPS thing, because I'm informed by the experts it's a straight line thing. It doesn't take into account the zigzag. No, it's 3:35 now. And Olano is pressing on, and Zuller is having no pressure at all. Look at this. Look, he's gone. There's not a bike rider watching this programme hasn't been through this. Look, say, look, steady, take it easy. What now? That the team manager will be saying to him here, ease back, don't lose your cool. Because if Zuller is out of contention for the top spot or top 3 spot, tomorrow is the time trial. He may not recover enough to win the time trial tomorrow, but you see it written on his face, the agony and the effort he's putting into it. They'll need him to ride with the 2 chaps down the road who've sacrificed themselves as Zuller so far, to ride for the best placed man in the days to come, which could be Jimenez. Zuller wears number 11, selected to ride for the Benesto team this year, was their number 1 hope. In the midst of this group, just back between these yellow jerseys, we'll see Jimenez any minute. Now Jimenez will take over as the top man. There he is, there, on your right-hand side there. Now disappeared. Once Deutsche Bank know they've got to get, they've now, there is Olano with the blue shades. They've now smashed Zuller out of it. They smashed Kamazin out of it. So they've destroyed the hopes and ambitions. But Kamazin and Zuller may then say, right, particularly Zuller, I'll go for the time trial towards the back end of the race. Jimenez now knows that he can have all the support of the Benesto team. Last year, this man, Jimenez, had to ride for Olano, because that's what the boss said. And we all said last year he could have won the race. There, look at this man, Ulrich. What a revelation. Look at his face. He's absolutely unconcerned. There. Escartin, the little sparrow himself in the green, white and blue, just pedalling up here. There is Rebellin, 131. There's Tonkov, 121. They've now got rid of Kamazin. They've got rid of Zuller. This group of 30 is beginning to set the scene for the rest of this Tour of Spain. Ivan Pala for Colombia, just back there, 206. Bit of revelation here. Casero, 201, champion of Spain. Nice little ride there by the rider from the Escudero team. That's Inigo Shallow. He's been climbing very well so far. He went off a couple of days ago in the breakaway group, and he looks good. I can't quite understand. I think probably he's trying to show himself. He's 1, 2, 3 back from the front, and he shouldn't be doing quite so much work, because he could actually drop back a bit shallow. He's got nothing to lose. He rides with one of the smaller teams, the Escudero team. Let the lads in yellow and black do the work. But he's there. Perhaps he's looking for a contract next year to move on into the Once Deutsche Bank team. You never know these things, because we've got 4 yellow and black riders on the front, riding for Olano. Being led at the moment by Marcos Serrano from the Once Deutsche Bank team. It's Cuesta just behind him. He with the white hat. And that's confirmation then of the climate, depending on Frank. This lad Challo, by the way, might be in with a shout if he keeps this going for the King of the Mountains competition. He's not... where he goes. Yes. So that's what he's after, and for this final climb of the day. So I had to go back and count his points, because I was saying, what's he doing all the work up for on the front? And it's because Inigo's Shadow is going to take that climb there. Now, on the third category climb, the points aren't all that magnificent, but at least he's just collected himself another 6 points for that one. So I shall now have to check that he got 6 for that. And on the climb before, which was a second category climb, when he was over in second spot, he got 7 points for that. So 6 and 7, by my calculation, makes 13. And he got a third there, 13. So he's got 18 points so far, Shadow, according to my quick calculations, in the King of the Mountains competition, to add to those he had at the beginning. He started out with 9 points, so 18 plus 9, if my risk rate is 27. I think Mr. Shadow might have moved into second spot on the King of the Mountains competition behind Brochard, but don't hold me to that, because my quick calculation on the back of the old fag packet here, no, envelope, fag packet here. Now, I'm not a smoker, although my friend Richard Alton did say that he knew I smoked cigars, but he did some time ago. I'm not quite sure whether he arranged me to have that nice Enduro shirt with the blue pictures on of these old cyclists in 1925 riding bikes and smoking fags, because I like my cigars or not. But anyway, so I'm not going to write on backs of fag packets anymore. Writing back some bits of paper, and I still think Mr. Shadow could be second, Brochard first, and we'll have to wait for the official result to come out at the end of it all. But there's no doubt about it that this little group here, given a fair wind, are going to get in towards the finish, and it isn't going to be very windy either. But this is where the race result will come from. Van der Broek on the front then for the confidence, looking remarkably cool, calm and collected. Very, very stylish way he's going. He's starting, he can probably smell a victory here today. Van der Broek has been taking advantage of the work that the Onse Deutsche Bank team have been doing, driving hard at the front. He's been sitting in there, biding his time, been looking good. I don't quite know why he's going the front quite so quick, because he's got a fair old turn of speed. And if you want to nip down the bookies, and I don't suppose they'll take any bets now. I don't know what they do with cycle racing. I mean, horse racing, once the tapes go up, you can't do anything about it, can you? Talk about horse racing, gosh, on keep. And this is back to the chase group, 219 back, and this is not including Zilla. Well, not last time we saw, he was still further back than that lot. They're not going to make it. See, Mappe won't chase because they've got Tonkov down the road. Cofidis won't chase because they've got Van der Broek down the road. This fellow in the yellow and black won't chase because he's got at least 5 of his teammates off down the road. Mappe here, well numbered. They're not going to go down. The only one could be Lotus Festina. Looking down, who's going to do the chasing? Escart, they won't chase. No, you'll see no chase coming up there from Diaz Justo. And there, Brochard's got back, but I think he's a bit stuffed. Perez. Ivanov. The TVM. Just trying to see who. Well, they might have to do something, because at the moment, that's Ebersol, Nicky Ebersol from Rabobank. Yes, the chase could be coordinated. Well, the work could be coordinated by the Rabobank team and Festina. Infiltrated by the lads in yellow and black. Mappe won't do anything. So yes, Festina's got quite a number of blokes back here, and I don't think they've got anybody up in the front group. So in terms of the chase, which we know our camera's picking up this group at the back here, lots of Mappe lads in there. But they won't chase because they've got Pavel Tonkov down the road. So this is our second group, and I would suspect that the front could be led by the Lotus Festina team in the black and the yellow, and probably might also see they could get some sort of assistance from the Rabobank in the white and orange, because I don't think they've got a man in the front group either. So that's the sort of setup now on the running towards the finish. I know I do get faxes and letters from people saying, well, what are team tactics? And you can see now why these things happen. If you haven't got somebody up there, you start to get it together, and that's why the race starts. And once the chaps on the front start driving it, the rest of the lads just get on the wheels and take it from there. 4:31 back to this little group. That's the last climb of the day. They're certainly going to come in penny numbers today. And intriguing too that the Once Deutsche Bank in the yellow and black, they've got about 4 riders back in that second pack. They've got about 4 or 5 up in this front group here, so they're quite well grouped in the 2 separate sections, and the chaps behind won't do anything to chase down the leaders. So just sit there and have a bit of a coasting ride. Now, it's going to be like this for an awful long way down and towards the finish. This is the day when the mountain climbers are going to have to twiddle their legs off. They don't normally like to sort of keep pedalling like this. They like to pedal up hills on lowish gears, but they've got to start getting the big gears going now and riding up, because it's, except for a little bit of a blip in the last 2 or 3 kilometres, it's drifting down all the way towards the finish. So it says to me that with the groups being about equal size and of equal intent, that's where the Once Deutsche Bank's trying to stay away and the rest trying to chase. We could keep out the same gap. So our lead group still desperately trying to stay away from the chase group with about 2.5 minutes back to them, but the man are really out of contention, Alex Ziller, and way off the pace too, the world champion Oscar Camadin. So today we've seen a selection process which will leave still probably about 4 or 5 of the chaps looking for a podium place in the same little group and ready to do battle tomorrow in the time trial. Just keep your fingers crossed they come down here in one piece and nobody falls off his bike. You can almost smell the burning rubber, can't you, as they applying the brakes from time to time on some of the bends. But they'll be coming down here steadily round about 45 miles an hour, and as you can see, freewheeling through here, following the line, the man in front. And I think this must be Ulrich, 1, 2, 3 from the back. I'm sorry, camera's jumping up and down quite a bit, but Ulrich, I think, is the only telecom rider that's made it into the front group. Garin, their top climber, and well, a very good climber and winner of that stage in the Alpe d'Huez in the Tour de France. I don't think he's quite made it, but certainly Ulrich is in this little group in the pink and white. Despite his rather portly shape, he's not built like a climber. He stayed with the top men today, just showed his tenacity, his guts, and of course he's a great time trialist. So tomorrow it can make life rather interesting indeed. Here they come. This is the front end. See, they're going faster than our motorcycle camera. He's got to really go. Look at that, they're coming at him. I think that flash of blue was 25 kilometres to go from the finish. Or was it the Meta Valente? Meta Valente. Hang on. Try and pick it up from the... Yes, that was it. Just coming out of my headphones, I've switched it on because they don't half chat a bit there. It's Serre d'Arello is they've just gone through there like a dose of salt. So they've gone through 26.5, and then we'll come up to 25 kilometres to go. Who got it is anybody's guess. It's amazing to have a sprint on a downhill rush like this one. That's right. So we were looking back at it again. The producers suddenly realised we've gone through the last sprint of the day. Way! Right on the... Well, in fact, he didn't take us over the line. He just flashed back and realised that we'd missed out. But that just shows the speed at which they're going. 26.5 kilometres to go to the finish. And looking at the time clock at the moment, they are really motoring, these lot. Averaging nearly 40 kilometres an hour they have. It's just a sniff under that now. Well, I should switch off the gavel in my left here about who was getting the king of the mountain, sorry, the last sprint of the day, because it's of no great relevance in the actual sprint points so far. It's just the fact that these chaps just whipped across the line. Someone's going to get a few points and a few seconds back. Except, of course, there was 6, 4 and 2 in time seconds. But right, now then, of this little breakaway group here, let me go down the group as we've got it. And who's that? Oh, Alano got that one. Wow, now that's interesting. So Alano, Galdiano and Cuesta. That could be interesting. Just give me while I write it down. Right, the reason I write it down is that I've got one of these word processor computer things, and it doesn't seem to be working at the moment, so I'm pressing the wrong button, so I've written it down. And Olano will have got 6 seconds bonus then, apart from the points in the competition. We saw him sprint for the Metavolante, the intermediate sprint at Soto Serrano, where he got himself into third spot. So Olano has now helped himself to 8 seconds bonus on the overall classification. And Olano this morning was 40 seconds down on Marcel Vus in the overall general classification. McEwen was second, Hunter was third, but they ain't with this a lot. Those top three have gone. But Igor Gonzalez Galdeano this morning was 1 second different from Olano on general classification. So in this breakaway group that we've got here, providing they stay away towards the finish, there is still going to be a chance of the dime seconds bonus at the finish of it all. But Abram Olano snitched back 8 seconds. No wonder he was sprinting, and of course he obviously spotted the fact that Igor Gonzalez Galdeano, who was 1 second away from this morning on general classification, was in that breakaway group. So he snitched a couple of seconds at the second sprint of the day, and then rocketing round through there. That just shows how these chaps work these things out. Olano has now got himself another 6 seconds bonus, so he's now got 8, which means he's 7 seconds ahead of Igor Gonzalez Galdeano, who was just ahead of by 1 second as we start out this morning. The other fellow in this breakaway group, Ignio Cuesta, was only 1 second behind. That's Cuesta there with the white hat. Now he rides for the same team as Olano. So Cuesta finished off into third spot there. He's got a couple of seconds bonus, and Cuesta this morning 1 second behind Olano, but he hasn't got the same bonuses either. So a very good little move there. Cuesta and Olano going across the line, pushing Galdeano into second spot. So that's they're the chaps in this breakaway group. Two of the Once team who start this morning in 5th and 6th spot are now moving up to be 1st and 2nd as it looks on the road at the moment. You had Ulrich this morning, who's in this breakaway group. He was 50 seconds down on general classification, so that means he was coming 10 seconds behind Olano. As you see there, the group. Look at the gap now back to Zuller. So Ulrich in this group will be happy, I think, just to ride in and wait for the time trial tomorrow. He's done very well to stay in with that little pack. He's done extremely well because he isn't the greatest of climbers. Adriola there with his teammate Ulsa and Zuller losing ground all the time. Disappointment for Zuller. That's put it in, I'm sure it has. One man I've not been able to spot who must have dropped out early on too of the pace was Bobby Julich riding for the Cofidis team. He came that awful crash at Metz and seems to have lost the edge on his racing. He was trying to get a place in the top 3, and I haven't seen him in this group. Certainly we've got Rebellin, we've got Van den Broek. Van den Broek and Cofidis is looking good too, but he's a bit down on the GC at the moment in 40th spot. Onto Deutsche Bank team still on the front here, driving this one forward because technically at the moment it looks, from my quick calculations, that Olano, by virtue of those 2 intermediate sprint bonuses, he got to 6 and a 2 seconds bonus. Of this group here, could be the best placed man over on classification at the end of it all, because our top placed 3 riders, Vust, McEwen, Hunter, are all marooned at the back. They've been dropped off, and the man who was 4th this morning, Igor Gonzalez Galdeano, was just 1 second ahead of Olano when we started this morning, but it looks as if in the intermediate sprints that Olano is now nudged ahead of Igor Gonzalez Galdeano, and that could well be putting him into the top spot. Something like 30 riders in this group, and those missing of consequence, obviously Zuller now getting on towards about 4 minutes back. Oscar Kamazin has lost a lot of time through to today, so there's some of the top boys still in this breakaway group, people like Rebellin, Escartin, Jimenez, Olano, Ulrich, and Rebellin, and Van den Broek and Casero. So there's still some good people in this little group. It looks like by snitching those time bonuses, we might have had Olano move into the lead. As they press on now, getting in towards the close of this stage 5. Oh, there it is. Olano, yes, that's they make it 3 seconds back. I thought a bit more than that, but anyway, I'll live with that. Cuesta is in 3rd spot, and then Ulrich back into 4th at 18 seconds. That's as it is now on the road here, allowing them all to come in at this particular order and say those chaps not contest any of the time bonus at the end of it all, but certainly that's a good move by Alano, and he's going to put a few nose out of joints. The reason why you're not seeing other people like rebelling up there, Van den Broek, they started a bit further down on GC this morning, and Jimenez riding for Benesto, he was 1 minute and 5 seconds down on overall classification, which meant this morning he was like 20 seconds behind Alano, who snitched a few more seconds bonus. And Jimenez is not the world's greatest time trialist, so tomorrow he could lose a bit more ground. Pavel Tonko was in his breakaway group, also not mentioned on the overall, because this morning he was again about some 20-odd seconds, 27 seconds behind Alano. Escartin this morning was about 30-odd seconds behind Alano on general classification. But for people like Escartin and Jimenez, when we come to big climbs, Alano is not known as the biggest and best mountain climber of all. And we've got a stinking day's climb ahead of us on stage 8 when we go over what's going to be one of the most back-breaking climbs we've ever seen on a tour. It's going over the top of the Alto de Langlero, and this one, everybody's been talking about it throughout the run-up towards the Tour of Spain. It is a real nasty bit one. Today I could see that 4 minutes and 50 seconds back to Zuller, so he's got to say bye-bye, I think, to a chance of staying in the top 3 by the time we get to Madrid in 2 weeks' time. But you never know when it comes to time trial. He could move up into the top 10 anyway, but that will be after tomorrow's time trial, which is a relatively flat one. It's not too onerous, and it sweeps round in Salamanca, and it's 51 kilometres in all, and Zuller might be able to pull back a bit of his time lost, providing he isn't too kippered after today's performance. Here we go. That's a great sight. Well, we should get a time check on that one with 20 kilometres to go. Back to the chase group. Interesting, Ulrich is towards the back of that group with Van den Broek, I think it is. Fellow with the black shorts and the pink and white. He's quite sensibly, a very good head on his shoulder, letting the Once Deutsche Bank team, who know that this is the day when they're going to rip legs, rip pieces off everybody else, let them do the work. That's Guidi in the red and yellow on the left-hand side, the bottom right-hand picture, who's with Zuller in this back group, and it really has turned into a laughing group. It's turned into a crying game, I think, because they really lost complete contact with the front group. Not that Guidi would expect to be up there, but amazingly that Guidi is actually riding with Zuller at this particular stage, because Guidi is a good sprinter roadman and not your world's greatest mountain climber. He's caught up with the labouring, long-legged fellow there in the blue pants of Alex Zuller, who's going through hell and high water to survive today's stage. Top left-hand corner, that's the lead group ploughing away. Right-hand side shows the camera picking up the back end of it, and then back down towards what's left of the chase group with Zuller. Oh, long, dusty road in towards the finish. So the Benesto team will have to really rethink their tactics after today, and I'm sure they're going to get themselves round Jimenez. We're looking here at Pipoli of Benesto at the back of this string. So the old order will change, or the new order will changeth. Also in this little group, then chaps at the back, we don't see much of them there. 157, that's Scheffer from Riso Scotti. Once Deutsche Bank sent one man to the back to keep an eye on things, whilst they plough on the front. It looks like Van den Broek just a bit further up, 1, 2, 3, about 5th from the front. Now there is a name to conjure with for the finish today. Very, very fast finisher indeed, and probably capable of winning the stage. That'll be a turn up for the books, wouldn't it? Gosh. That's interesting. I like the camera work being done, and I hope you enjoy it too, is that often, sometimes you get bike racing, all you get is the camera up the front end, seeing what's happening here. And this has been going on with the onto Deutsche Bank team, driving hard at the front, relaying round. But it goes towards the back, and you get a feeling that, well, is Van den Broek sitting in the back because he's taking a breather, or he can't hang on, or is he waiting for the finish? Ulrich not doing anything because he doesn't have to, and they're going to let him sit at the back, because there's nobody going to shout him for not working. Whereas other teams, like the Onto Deutsche Bank, like the Vitellus Seguros, like the Kelme Costa Blanca, want to drive this thing hard, as do Polti there for Rebellin. One or two of them now want to drive it hard when they've got more than one teammate in there, to just get the distance further and further away from the chaps behind. About 30 riders in this group, so with only one for Cofidis, I think, Van den Broek, only one for Telecom, Ulrich, they can, and that chap from Riso Scott, he's sat in there too as well, Schaefer, they could say, right, you get on with it. In fact, Schaefer, comes from Kazakhstan. I got an email, by the way, during August. I didn't have a chance to get hold of it. I think it was dating back to July. It got rerouted to me, and an email from a chap called Don Blackwell dash Almaty. I hope. Well, in fact, Don Blackwell, I think, is his name, but I don't know what the Almaty thing is. But then Don Blackwell sent us an email and was thanking us for our coverage of the... Oops, they're starting to go a bit. Quester off the front. Thanks of the Tour de France. And he said that they listened to the English commentary, and he's out in Kazakhstan, by the way. He's an expatriate from Colorado Springs, living in Kazakhstan. And, of course, he said he was rooting for the US Postal Team after Bobby Julich crashed out of it, and they're following Vinokurov as well. Well, for Kazakhstan, you've got one man hanging on just in the back of there. That's Alexander Scheffer, Mr. Don Blackwell, if you're watching our coverage now. So they've certainly made it to keep it a man in content. This is the chase group, by the way, and again, as I'd expect, the Festina Lotus lads, or Festina in the black or dark blue and the yellow, are driving hard in the front, and they will have with them the lads from Rabobank in the orange and white to try and do something about pulling back that break. And back we go toward the tail end of this little group too, and back up towards the front. I'll tell you wits about you, don't you? Spotting which group's which. And this is our lead group. And Vitellus Seguros also coming to charge along here, because they again are quite happy with this one, because they've got Igor Gonzalez Galdiano up there with a chance of being third overall this evening. So that long string has got plenty of cards to play, and there's not, I suppose, about, well, the last 5 or 10 blokes aren't going to do too much, because they're only like one of them. But when you've got the Once Deutsche Bank team driving hard at the front, when you've got the Vitellus Seguros team, because they've got Igor Gonzalez Galdiano, who opened the whole thing up by taking the prologue time trial in that breakaway group as well. And with 15 kilometres to go, and the gap's opening up right back to the chase party, this is going to be the settling down point for the whole of the race. This is where we're going to pick up the people who are going to be in the top 10, I think, in the end when we get to Madrid in just over 2 weeks' time. Anybody in this group could be in the top 10 place. It'll be difficult for anybody who's not in this group to leap up there. They'll have to do some outrageous ride from the back of the pack. So we're coming on right in the distance there to Ciudad Rodrigo, and it's an amazing place, by the way. I hope we'll see it. There's a lovely old bridge there, and the river they go across is called Rio Ajueda, and the Romans built the bridge. That's where it sort of got its origin from, but it's very fought out. Imagine going across in years gone by when the Moors came over here and captured it. Then Count Rodriguez Gonzalez Giron grabbed it back in the 12th century, so that's where it got its name from. And we'll see some of the great big fortifications he built around the town on part of the old Roman walls, because they were down there below there, and it's right close to the Portuguese frontier, right over there. That's Portugal across there, 27 kilometres away in the distance, and it became a very important part of the world here, and it was tackled and captured by the French, and along came Wellington and Peninsular War and grabbed it back again, and so it's been backwards and forwards and been very much a ground where a battle being fought over the years. And I hope we have a chance then of having a good look at the old town. But you never know with our coverage of cycle racing. The cameras go up, you have a chance to look, and we're gone, because we have to get on to the next programme, which I think is due at 5 o'clock. So it says to me we are running late, so let's hope we have a chance of looking at the old town. But if not, I can assure you, very, very nice indeed. I'm just checking to see whether he's putting his hand up into his ear to see what the information coming up over the headphones from the. No, he's having a little drink now. So we've got about 15 kilometres to go at the rate they're trundling along here. That's around about 20 minutes of action. So we are running a little bit behind the fastest schedule that we got, which was just on 41 kilometres an hour. So those mountains in between have slowed things down. And you can see that gap there inside 15 kilometres to go. The chase group are not going to catch this lot with 3 minutes and 8 seconds, and Zulo a further 2:10 back. That's 5 minutes and 18 seconds. Can say bye-bye, I think, to a rostrum place in Madrid in just over 2 weeks' time. Just looking ahead to the finish when they sweep into this one around the Avenue de Bejar and the Avenue de Espana and in towards the finish line. There's a bit of a right-hander towards the end, but we're not going to see the jostling, pushing, shoving and falling off that the sprinter specialists have been doing in the few days running up to this particular stage to entertain us. So it should be probably a chance of somebody trying to go off with a kilometre to go, or maybe even 3 kilometres out, to break this little lot up. And let's see what happens then. Back 15 k's to go. This is a chase group. Festina have to do something. They're not in with a shout. Also, Rabobank in the orange and yellow, they can't sit back and take it easy. They won't get any help from the Camino Costa Blanca lads in the blue shorts. They'll just infiltrate and not come through. Nor will the chaps in the yellow and black. They won't help at all. They're just sort of sitting in there making life difficult for the chasers. It's down to Rabobank and Lotus Festina. Chap third in line, he won't help. See the fellow coming through now in the blue shorts? He won't ride through anything like any speed. He'll just do a couple of taps on the front, then drop back in again, because they've got his scarting down the road and they won't try and close that gap at all. So it looks like it's curtains for this chase group, and the result will come from the first 30 riders on the road. Well, that shows it all on your screen there as we're getting in towards the back end of this race. Something like about 10 kilometres to go from the finish. That our lead group containing Olano, he's up there. His name is on the board because he was last year's winner in this race. He wears number 1 on his back, and as he already collected some 8 seconds bonuses along the way through, he's technically race leader. But of course, when we get to the finish this race, there's going to be the same 2012 and 8 seconds bonus at the back end, because this race does have time bonus on every stage, as now does the Tour de France. Some of the races only have, in fact we're down to single figures, but some of the races only have time bonuses on the flat stages, but the Tour of France has now followed the Tour of Spain and is going to have time bonus on every stage right the way through. So it could change coming in towards the finish, but this group here thundering along. I'm looking back down for the man with the best turn of speed in this particular group, and I suppose it has to be Van den Broek, who start out this morning some 17 seconds adrift of Olano, and Van den Broek then has lost another 6 seconds in the 8 seconds in intermediate time. So in reality it's 25 seconds back between Van den Broek and Olano. So even if Van den Broek popped out and got the stage victory, according to my calculations here, he wouldn't take the overall lead, because Olano has been clever enough to pick up some time bonuses on the intermediate sprints coming through. Ingo Cuesta and Igor Gonzalez Galdeano are in contention, because the gap between Olano and Galdeano, according to my calculations here, is only some 7 seconds, and Cuesta is some 9 seconds. So if they can get the sprint and Olano's not in the top 3, then it could change. But I'm not quite sure that Igor Gonzalez Galdeano has got that turn of speed. But you never know. That's why the lads at the front here in red and white for Vigiles Seguros are driving on very hard indeed. So very closely packed this morning when they came into the stage. Those riders, Galdeano, Olano and Cuesta in this breakaway group, only separated now by the fact that Mr. Olano has grabbed himself some few seconds bonus. 5 kilometres to go then. Just about 7 minutes maximum to go to see who's going to snaffle the stage and who's going to take over the gold jersey off Marcel Wust, who is back way back down on the road. In fact, I won't say he's going to get dark before he gets in here. That's going to be very rude of me, but certainly Marcel Wust now has lost that gold jersey. We expected that to happen. This is back with the chase group. which does not contain Zuller. He's even further back indeed, and trying to cut the deficit. The lads here from the Lotus Festina team in the yellow and blackish blue coloured jerseys, together with the lads from the Rabobank team in the orange and white, trying also to cut the gap back. Then they are the ones who are doing all the driving on the front, towing the rest of the riders behind. Some of them smattering of colours, you can see there. They've got representatives in the lead group, so they're not going to do anything to aid and abet this chase. So that's it. As we go back then into the lead group, there we have Ulrich, and the Cofidis rider is going to be, oh, they took it away again. That's Casero there in the orange and the yellow. This is Schaefer for the Kazakhstan rider, and Vitaly Segura's got at least 3 riders in this breakaway group. And there is, in fact, more than that, I think, because 201 in there is not doing much work at Casero. And they've also got Igor Gonzalez Galdiano. They've got Parra in there as well. So there must be 4 of the Village Seguros riders in here. The Benesso chap won't do anything at all. Sat back there to aid this breakaway group. Nor will Jimenez was in it. They'll just, I think, try and stay out of harm's way and drift in towards the finish, knowing now that their job will be to protect Jimenez, not Zuller, who's dropped a lot of time today, probably thick end of 5 minutes. That was Pierpoli back there. Haven't missed a beat, have they, this league group, since they formed. There it is, in the distance. Suedo Rodrigo. In the distance to Portugal. 160 kilometres they'll race by the time they get to the finish. 100 miles, and it's been full of incidents all the way through. I don't know whether you're watching the live programme or the recording, but when we came, sat down this day to start our programme at 1 o'clock, the first time we've ever done the Tour of Spain, a stage from front to back right the way through, every part of it, we had prepared the look back at the early stages of this race, where we could give you a look back at the various ways the race had formed, the sprints, the things that had gone on to build up the drama for today. But we never had a chance to do it. We came out from the start, then bang, off they went from the gun. We had Roscioli going off down the road, being chased by Tauler, Ochkov and Contrini. They got together, and then Sorensen tried to close the gap. Then he got dropped back, and then in the end it all split as they came up. Ochkov and Contrini pressed on again, and we did 28 kilometres. We covered an average of 50 kilometres per hour. And it went on like all the way through. Then Diaz Justo went away, then Brochard, and set the scene on the big climb. So the thing to break apart, it seems like it has done now. Well, that's our league group, something about 30 riders, and in there, I won't say there's everybody who's anybody in this race as regards the overall classification, because we have got dropped off at the back. Belli's not quite made it, nor has Zuller, well and truly distance off the back. The world champion, Oscar Camazin, is out of contention as well. But it's going to be very fascinating on the run in towards here, because Avram Milano, with those extra 8 seconds bonus he snitched so far in the competition, is now technically a race leader on the road, since Marcel Wust is now so far back. He'll probably be able to get himself a set of lights, I think, to shine on his way in, because he's way off the pace on the run in, and that means that he knew he's going to lose it anyway. But we have now got this group coming in. I think probably my money would be on Van den Broek to get the victory today, but don't quote me on that one, and I don't think the bookies will take any odds either, because they're beginning to slow a little bit. But well, hey, what a turn for the books to be if Ulrich got it, but I don't think he's got the speed in his legs to sprint away from this little lot. I would go with either one of the Vitaly Seguros riders, who'll try and catch people napping. Occasionally can we fire people off the road. The Onte Deutsche Bank people have been going very hard indeed to make sure that, yeah, there we are, Vitaly Seguros. As I said, I thought that he might have a little bit of a burst on the banjo. And this is Blanco, one of the white hopes. Oh, I shouldn't say that, should I? With a name like Blanco, but they expected a lot of him over the last couple of years. He hasn't quite produced the goods, and he's now trying to go and get this stage victory. Blanco away here, looking down the general classification. He's not really up there in the top slot. He's no threat. He's no threat if he gets the 20 seconds bonus at the end of it all. Avram Milano and Igor Gonzalez Galdiano, only just some 9 seconds difference between the two of them, and that's where the battle could be for second and third spot 1 kilometre to go. He could well do it. Blanco's launched himself into space. A good move here. And so Blanco might be on his way for a stage victory, whilst behind the overall lead could well go then to Abra Milano. Good move by Blanco. One thing about the performance of the Vitaly Seguros team, they've been helping out just a bit at the front, but not doing too much, so they've kept 1 or 2 riders in reserve to fire themselves off down the road. They've done it. Santiago Blanco coming down here. Comes from Piotr Biecha in Salamanca. It's a local rider then. We've come out of Biecha where he's come from, and now turning his back on his hometown. He's coming down here to try and get the stage victory, but it looks like he's going to be swallowed up. So for Locoman Biecha, where we start this morning, Santiago Blanco might just survive a win. And it is Ulrich who's starting to come. I say, what a turn of the books if Ulrich would go for it with a silver helmet on and the pink and white. Ulrich is powering around the pedal. This is going to take everybody by surprise. He's come from the back to the front, but he hasn't got quite the speed in his legs in. Where has Van den Broek got to? He's not in contention either then. And here we go then, on the way toward the finish line. Going to be, is it Alana going to take? No, Ulrich comes back again and Ulrich gets the victory. Amazing! Unbelievable performance by the Wunderkind himself. Alana, I think, was in second spot, but my eyes were on Jan Ullrich, who's come back and he's shown people that he's in with a bang, with a chance to win this race. Who would have thought it a few weeks ago when he smashed his knee in Hamburg? Who would have thought he'd be here in the Tour of Spain without any help today and over the big mountains? The boy is back with a bang, and my good friend Klaus Angermann and my co-commentator on the German side too, Rominger, 3 times winner of this race, are absolutely overjoyed with this one as Ullrich fights his way through and grabs the extra vital 20 seconds bonus from Alana alongside him. And it was Van den Broek into third spot, the man I thought might win the stage. I wasn't quite right there. I got him into third spot, but look at that from Ullrich. That's a real one-off. Way great. And then Rebelling coming into fourth spot, Casero back into fifth, Escartin back there, I think on the far side of sixth. I'll wait for official confirmation on that one. But that from Ullrich, he came twice. That is a sort of gift to some sprinters. He came too soon, he's back and he came again, and boy, he punched his way across the line. So disappointment, I think, for Alano. He's taken the overall lead, but Ullrich's got the stage victory today. Well, we've seen Marcel Wust from Germany taking 3 consecutive stage victories for the Lotus Festina team, and he's done it in fine style, Marcel Wust, so gave a lot of people back in Germany something to be happy about on our German channel of Eurosport. And we'd heard from the various team managers that they were concerned, well, not concerned, they were watching at the performance of Ullrich, and they were saying, tapping the side, that boy's looking good, and by God, he came good today to get that stage victory. Alana being pushed back into second spot, disappointed not to get the stage victory and the leader's jersey, but according to my calculations, Alana will be in goal, but the man over whom a great big goal halo will be hovering will be that man from Germany, Ullrich. And I should think the celebrations in the old beer houses tonight will go and go and go and go, because what about 3 consecutive victories by a German rider, Wuster, and then a 4th one comes from Ullrich, and that was a brilliant piece of bike riding too by a man many people had written off because they thought that he got to a point in his career when he was all going downhill. He's not. He's back with a bang, and my goodness, we're in for an interesting Tour of Spain. Tomorrow, the time trial. Remember that Ullrich is also a damn good time trialist, and he could really rip the things to pieces tomorrow. So I don't know what you're doing tomorrow afternoon. We're actually coming on air at 2:30 Central European time to do the time trial at Salamanca, the 51 kilometres. We're going to cover about 2.5 hours of that, and I think that one's going to be really fascinating, particularly at the back end when we pick up the final 30 riders, or many of the 20 of whom have been in that leading group we saw today. This is the group which has been very much animated by the Rabobank team, who had no men in that league group, and also Lotus Festina, who had Brochard set a hot pace today, and looks like Brochard will take the King of the Mountains jersey when he gets in to the finish. But in the days of disappointment stakes, I think Zuller has to take the top prize for that, because he's going to come in thick end of 5 minutes down, and from now on in, the the Benesto team are going to have to look after the interests of Jimenez, who last year finished in third spot in this race. So looking back again at the sprint, as Alano tried to get this one, courageous chap he was, leaving in his wake Van den Broek on the right hand side with the blonde hair, but the chap with the silver helmet on came good after trying to get away and then fading, then coming back again, and it was victory to Jan Ullrich. Bump goes Van den Broek, bumping his hands on the handlebars. I thought he might have got it, but there you are. 3 hours, 52 minutes, 56 seconds for 100 miles. And if you have been watching our programme, if you've been watching the climbs that they've done today, when they went over the Alto de Mogaras, a 10-kilometre climb, average 4.5%. The Alto del Portillo, a 13-kilometre climb, average 5.8. The Alto Peña de Francia, 7 kilometres, average 6.3. Alto del Bensacro, a 4-kilometre climb, 4.3. Then you'll realise today that these riders have gone up some like 34 kilometres of climbing. That's about 15 miles. And as you watch Ullrich take the stage today, think back those 100 miles, including that 15 miles of climbing, they've done it at over 25 miles an hour. It's unbelievable, isn't it? Brilliant. And it has not missed a beat all the way through. I've got loads of things here to talk to you about, which I stashed on one side in case it got boring, and they're sitting here and I haven't had a chance to look at them. It's been that sort of day, hasn't it? Gosh. Where's the sangria? This is the disappointing group. It's not the laughing group, it's a disappointing group, because in there, Zuller coming in now 5 minutes 28 seconds down with his teammates from the Benesto team. There he is, that's him. He will now have to start working for Jimenez. He will try, I think, to go for a time trial victory, not perhaps tomorrow, because for him it will be a tough job, I think, to recover from today's performances. They've got some way to go. It's what, 80 kilometres out to the start of the back to Salamanca for the start tomorrow, but really it won't be enough, I think, one night's rest to get Zuller in with a shout for the time trial tomorrow. You never know, he might recover for that one, but he's taken awful pacing today. He'll have to wait till we get to the penultimate time trial, I think, to look for some success in that respect, but now he's going to have to work for the rest of the Benesto team. So there we are, that's your result there. Great a double sprint by Ullrich. It looked like he died a death, came back. Disappointing for Alano, but he's taken the gold jersey. Van den Broek in third spot, yes, ahead of Rebellion, we've spotted that. And Casero, the Spanish champion, into fifth. So the Spanish have got something to cheer about here, and I'm sure that in Germany they're going to be there downing a few of the beers in the Munich beer cellars et al., and saying well done to this young man. He's back with a bang. Well, he's also lost a lot of weight and he's gained a lot of confidence, and Ullrich then has taken the stage into Ciudad del Rodrigo, the stage 5 of the Tour of Spain today. Brilliant ride by the German.